Hello, everyone. My name is Apostle Alauddin. I decided to dedicate a stream to ex-Muslims to call in and let me know their story or talk about anything they'd like to talk about because we don't often get a chance to do that. We don't have a lot of spaces where this kind of conversation is possible. I'd like to remind everybody to please not call in if it's going to be a security risk. Your safety matters more. It'll be it'll be fruitful and informative to just listen as well, and you'll probably get a chance to do this another time later. So please keep that in mind. And I'd like to remind everybody that I want to keep it under 10 minutes or so per person so I can talk to multiple people. Unless there's not enough people waiting, then maybe I'll go back to another caller. I'll share the link in the comments here in the live chat. I'll pin it in a little bit, but I also have a poll that I'd like you to answer. If you're a Muslim, did you hear the analogy of the stovetop? Were you ever told, imagine how hot a stovetop is, now hell is going to be a lot hotter? It crossed my mind today, and I'm curious, how many of you have heard that? And please, once you join, put a brief description in the private chat and let me know who you are in a summary and what you want to talk about today. Yeah, and that's about it. You could discuss anything you'd like, but please try to keep the language a little bit on the cleaner side because I want everybody to feel included and not want to leave the stream just because they're offended by the language or something. Anyhow, with that, let's begin. I do have a couple of people in the private chat already. I want to add Azri, schizophrenia. I'll add you in a few seconds. So please let me know if the audio difference, the volume difference between mine and theirs is a little much, and I'll try to make an adjustment. Okay, let's begin. 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, hello, Apostle Leen. Good day. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
You seem to be breaking off. Can you repeat that? Repeat
I
that?
am good, thanks. How are you?
Okay. Fine. I wanted to say I just bought Netflix today, and do you watch Netflix?
I do sometimes, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
I identify myself as an ex-Muslim,
Okay,
but I still believe in the day of judgment, the day of resurrection. Okay.
interesting. Yeah.
Before we begin, I will explain about my belief, and after that, I will explain two reasons why I call myself an ex-Muslim.
Okay.
Okay,
It's very interesting. I'd like to hear about that.
okay, I will explain more about my belief. I believe a day, or I have hope there will be a day where justice will come, and evil and injustice will be judged accordingly. If the world has a lot of hidden evil that people don't see, and I am a victim, of course I will want to hope a future where justice will come. I admit what I believe is a legend, a fairy tale. But if truth and knowledge had brought so much to the world, then it is not strange to believe a day where truth and justice will emerge and evil will be judged equally. So that's the first part. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. So it's interesting that you said you know that it's a myth and a legend, but I understand that it brings you comfort. So how do you wholeheartedly believe in it? So can you describe more of your belief? How does that make sense to you, or is it just that you hope that that's going to be the case?
I actually cannot. I actually do not understand
Uh,
your
let me
question.
let me
Can you
rephrase
clarify?
it. So you said you know that it's a myth and a legend, but you
Yes.
also believe that it will happen, or are you saying you hope that it will
Hope.
happen?
I hope that will happen.
You hope, okay,
I have hope. Okay.
because you want to see justice delivered.
Yes, justice. So
Well,
that's
but
the first part. Okay.
wait, but
The
before you
second.
move on,
Uh,
I'm curious to pick your brain about this. So, what would that justice look like on the day of judgment? Can you give me an example?
justice, like people are treated equally. Where, for example, you work for something and you get in return something equal. It's not like you. Yeah. For example, people these days they don't think about their own benefits. They they work tirelessly, but they aren't treated equally. They something like that.
So you think it's going to be a second life where people, where there is justice? Is that what you're saying?
Hope for the children of the future, that they will be more more equal, treated more equally.
Okay, in the afterlife, you mean on the day of judgment?
For now, I actually, for the present, I actually do not believe in the afterlife like that. But I believe in something like future for our children or something like that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah, that
Okay.
makes more sense. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. The second part, I identify myself as the next Muslim. Why? Because of two things. Firstly, I reject Muhammad and his teachings, and secondly, because I believe God do not exist, but only
Okay.
for the time being. In the future, I believe God will come. Firstly, about Muhammad, I believe Muhammad is an imperfect man who talks unjustly. When I say imperfect, I mean his words have contradiction with the Quran. And why
Um.
Muhammad's words are
Mhm.
unjust, I relate it to the scripture. The scripture is like the words of God, and the messenger is required to remind and warn people by using the scripture. But Muhammad
I'd
doesn't
like
even.
to
Huh?
clarify
Okay.
something. So you said that you believe God will come at some point. Uh,
Yes.
so did God create the world or did he not?
Uh, Talking about that, I actually do not have the. I do not know. Sorry,
Okay.
but I just have hope that God will come.
To save us, basically,
Yes, to
or
save
to
us,
deliver justice.
to bring justice to against evil, something like that.
Is that an idea that you got from another religion or some kind of spiritual religion? Is that it?
Actually, I got it from the Quran itself, bits and part of it.
Okay, I'm a little confused, but I don't want to keep questioning. So yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. Like I said, Muhammad doesn't even quote the Quran. He also talks idly without bringing proof from the Quran. That is unjust. I know it's hard to bring proof, but I believe a truthful person is able to bring proof to the table. And my final words, why I call myself an ex-Muslim,
Mhm.
because presently I do not believe God exists because of the problem of evil. If God exists, then He will have the power to punish evil, and He will also have the power to reward people for obeying His commands. But neither of that happens, not now, but hopefully in the future. Well, that's all.
Okay, thanks for sharing. I know a lot of us might not be able to wrap our heads around that, but it's uh, it's interesting. I never thought of that someone would believe this. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Do you have any questions or something?
Um, well, a few, but I don't know if there are answers for them per se. So let me ask you one more before I let you go. So, do you think that this is similar to some religions that say there will be a savior that will come back and make things right, but
Yes,
God has
yes.
existed the whole time? Okay.
uh, yes, it's similar to like Islam. For example, they talk about Mahdi, the coming of Mahdi, and for example, in Christi- Christianity, they
Hmm.
talks about Jesus coming. But
Yeah.
it's really hard to find the parts of it. I think it's in the scripture, but it's all over the place, so it's hard to find something like that.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Okay,
yeah. Thank you for sharing, and have a
okay,
nice day, Azri.
okay. Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye bye. All right. So I've got three people waiting in the private chat. I'll be taking them one by one. Uh, and I want to remind everybody to try to answer that poll because I am curious to know the answer. And after we get some answers, I will pin the live stream chat, the live stream link. I keep pasting it every now and then anyway. Anyhow, now I'm going to take Ibn Qayyim and I'll let them introduce themselves. I'm guessing it's a him. So I'm adding you in three, two, one. Hey, how's it going?
Hello, hi there. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, fantastic. I grew up in I guess, a traditional British Pakistani household here in the north of England, and I always questioned, especially in my teens, about the concept of free will and how it contradictory compared to the predestination that we have in the Quran. And that questioning led to me in about 2006. I remember I watched a program from Richard Dawkins called The Root of All Evil. And in that, he kind of went through why people believe in God. I think it was mainly focused on Christianity, but you could apply the same things to Islam. And that kind of ended in me completely leaving the faith altogether.
So how long did that process take for you?
So I started questioning, I guess, in probably 2004. So I guess 2 years, and then by once I've watched the program with regard to Richard Dawkins, I had completely, I no longer believed in God.
Okay, so you don't believe in God in general, not just Islam.
Yeah, I don't believe in God in general. Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
I also there is something I want to discuss with you. I think probably even more important, and that is the. Do you believe in free will?
I am not decided on that yet. It really depends on how you define free will. So can you quickly define it and tell me what you think?
So I would say free will would be a person being able to decide an action without kind of so it's hard to define, isn't it? I would say it's something that is not related to genetics or past experiences, that they are just doing it of their own kind of decision. I wonder how you would define it.
I'm not really sure, but the way that you're defining it, I don't believe in free will that way, because sometimes I have these moments when I realize that I am doing an action right now thoughtlessly because of something else. I mean, the butterfly effect, I always notice that how a small event could change a lot of things in the future. It doesn't have to be some kind of disaster. I think the metaphor comes from a butterfly. Its wings flapping could cause a volcano to erupt somewhere else in the world, or something like that, or a hurricane to happen. But on a smaller scale, I see that like a subliminal message that I got from something I heard on the radio or whatever, and now I'm craving fish, things like that. I think on an even bigger scale, when it comes to your past experiences, your environment, and the options that are available in front of you, you may not even consider other options and other choices. So I don't think free will exists in that sense, no.
I have the exact same kind of perspective to you. So for me, I think when a person makes a decision or has a thought in their mind, it's as a result of either their genetic predisposition in combination with their past experiences, and also another factor involved is societal deterrence. So, for example, you might be predisposed to behaving in a particular way or to do a certain act, but society might deter you from acting in a particular way because it's seen as bad. Or there might be a legal deterrent, so it might be against the law to behave in a particular way, and that might stop you from doing it as well. I think the only way you can change the course of the course of events in your life is for a third party to come in and intervene and provide you with a new experience or a new idea or something of this nature. So like Richard Dawkins provided me with a new way of perceiving why I believed in the existence of God, and that kind of changed my.
For a second? You said, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You said something along the lines of the only way is by someone else intervening. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So I think the only way a person can change their course, like the course of life that they're heading towards, would be a third party coming in and either providing an idea or an experience to a person, which would then give them a different perspective, and then allow them to do something. And that could be that doesn't have to be in real life. That could maybe be on TV or online, or speaking to you, listening to you, coming across your video. It could change a person's perspective, therefore changing their course of their life, kind of.
I don't quite agree with the way that you phrased it earlier, which is that's the only way. It could, and it absolutely, often that's how it happens, but I don't think it's the only way. No, I mean, you already had that inclination and that was the trigger or the thing, the straw that broke the camel's back or whatever.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
feel like given enough time, I mean, could have gone either way, but given enough time, it's not necessarily a fact that you wouldn't have left Islam. But
But it was
just yeah.
it was about me learning about the contradiction in the first place. So someone provided me with that experience. So someone told me to read this part of the Quran, and then I read it, and then that's how I started questioning. Yeah.
You know what? In my case, I had the same question also in my teens, and I didn't come from an external source because where I was, there was no dissent about
Mhm.
that kind of thing. It wasn't in Saudi Arabia. That wasn't really a discussion to be had, and I didn't have unfettered access to the internet. And
Mhm.
when I did have access to the internet, it wasn't really a concern in my mind to. I don't even know if there were that kind of material out there. Maybe on some blog
Okay.
posts or things like that. But yeah, I guess we
Well,
have
then I
to.
would I mean, I would say with them it would be a genetic predisposition to question. So you might
That
have been
I
genetically predisposed. Yeah. Yeah.
you know
To
what, that I might be. It's hard to define that, and it's hard to prove it or specify it. So I don't want to make any definitive statements, but I think there's something innate, be it because of. I don't think it has to do with some kind of soul or spirit or something like that. It's not an essence of you, but because of whatever conditioned you to become this way, or because of genetics or how you think. Not everybody would have the same thought about that contradiction or see it as a contradiction. So I agree with that part. So yeah, pretty much.
But one thing I would say that this perspective helps with is empathizing with those who you disagree with the most, right?
Hmm.
Because if you think of it as them not having free will to, like, for example, the people who recently lynched the Sri Lankan guy in Pakistan, right?
Hmm.
I'm sure you've heard of it, yeah?
Hmm.
So it helps you to empathize with the people you disagree with the most if you look at their circumstances, where they were coming from, the experiences they had in their life. It led them to lynching this innocent man, right? And as much anger that you might have initially, like watching some of those videos, you can, if you imagine yourself going through the same experiences those young men went through, you could see yourself maybe in the same position as they were. And
I definitely agree with
unfortunately,
that. Yeah.
what Pakistan is going to do now is execute those men. Pakistan does not execute people who blaspheme. It executes those who kill blasphemers, right? It's done so in the past, and it's continued to do so to this day. And I think there needs to be more ex-Muslims who stand up for the rights of the people who we disagree with the most. Because I don't believe in the death penalty personally, right? And I can see where this is heading, and it's just sad that we don't see anyone who is, standing up and trying to stop this, unfortunately.
You know what? I have to softly disagree here. So, what you're saying about empathy is true, and I seem to mention it a lot in my videos, and it personally puts me in a very conflicting position where you're left with a lot of frustration and you don't know who to be upset at because you understand that the people who behave that way, the hordes of people in my comments who tweet at me all the time,
Mhm.
hateful stuff, I could have been in their shoes. I mean, I was one defending Islam, not in that manner, but that could have been me. I understand what got them to that point, or that part of it is not really, because they're bad people. But your suggestion, or for example, the situation in Pakistan, the majority of people are supportive of executing apostates or blasphemers. So Pakistan kind of softening it down to some, life sentence or something like that. It's not really, or the fact that they execute the people who lynch. That's, I think
Yeah.
that just is saving face, if anything, because they don't want Pakistan to turn into some kind of war torn, country. But I don't know if I agree for us standing up for. I mean, there's priorities. There's a lot more that we can stand up for before we stand up for the execution of lynchers. Like, I get the sentiment, and I think there should still be humanity, and we should still say, understand the factors that cause them to be that way. But there's a lot more that I should stand for before I ever stand for, not executing them. Though I don't know how I feel about the death penalty necessarily. It's just energy and priorities.
But imagine the impact it would make if you did stand up for them. people will be looking and seeing the only
I don't
people
know if
that are
that's
standing
true.
up for these people who committed one of the worst acts that most people have ever witnessed, right? The only people that are standing up for their rights, for their rights not to be killed by a state, right? In fact, what Pakistan is doing to these young men is worse than what they did to the Sri Lankan guy, because they might have heard this information and lost the plot, completely lost the plot, and just out of anger reacted in a certain way. What Pakistan is doing it is a predetermined kind of premeditated killing, right? It's not like
I don't know
in
if
the
there's
situation. Yeah.
a benefit in like comparing them, which is worse. I mean, it's good to understand the factors behind them, but I wouldn't rank them in any way, to be honest, because
Oh,
the
I
fact
would.
is, yeah,
Yeah. The
yeah,
reason I would is I'll give you an example. My teacher in high school, his uncle was convicted of murder. He came home and he witnessed his wife with another man, right? And he just completely lost it. He just, at that point, his just mind went, and he just, out of anger, he just killed the guy, right? Because of his emotions, etc. It wasn't pre-planned or anything like that. And he was sentenced to life in prison, right? That is different to something being predetermined where you've planned
no, I
everything out.
understand
Yeah,
the
yeah,
concept itself, but I don't think
yeah,
in this example it's that clear at all. I think at that point it doesn't really, I mean, it doesn't quite matter what factors led to that point because that person is the way they are, unless there's a mechanism for rehabilitation, which
yeah.
I think it's too far gone for. I mean,
I don't
given
think so.
the
Yeah,
no, it's not that necessarily that it's too far gone. The amount of resources and care that would need to be put in to rehabilitate those kind of people are not available, and the intention is not there. So it is a noble, like humanitarianly, yeah, sure, it's on the list of things that we should care about, but it's way, way low on the list, in my opinion. Because I
I,
mean,
I-
in
yeah,
theory, what you're saying about if the only people standing up for the not executing the people who lynched are ex-Muslims, in theory, Muslims would see that and be like, oh, let me reconsider. Those people are
mhm.
humanitarians, actually. In practice, that's not how it happens. And in practice, you're never going to get enough support from people who want support for themselves first before going out of their way to support a cause like that, that has no popularity and honestly less justification than support for us and for other cases. Like, have you heard of the latest case of Anika Atiq?
Yes,
That's how you pronounce
yes.
it.
And
Yeah,
what was kind of sad, slightly, and I don't mean this, don't take me the wrong way with regard to this, right? Um, she's been imprisoned for wrongfully, absolutely, for from doing absolutely nothing, right?
right. And there's
And yeah,
hashtags going viral about wanting to hang
hashtags
her.
going viral. But
Yeah,
where's the hashtags going viral? But there's also hashtags saying, get her out of prison, save her, etc., etc. Where are the hashtags for the people that are on death row right now? Right? For those
like
guys
in
who killed the
general.
Sri Lankan. For
Oh,
not for the
or
guys who
you
killed the Sri Lankan guy. Yeah. There's no
we
hashtags for
will
them.
never see eye to eye about that because I think,
Yeah.
look, if we had all the other issues taken care of and we had the freedom and time and resources to now focus our attention to that humanitarian cause, sure, maybe if you can rehabilitate 80 or however many people, sure, but it's not feasible and it's a waste of time and energy, and it gives off the wrong like the wrong impression, and it gives off the wrong implications of what your intentions are. So yeah, we're just gonna have to agree to disagree
We'll
on
have to
that. But
disagree. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
but I
Yeah,
get where
yeah.
you're
But
coming from. Yeah.
yeah. But do like, for example, like I've changed my perspective on so many things coming from this kind of, way of thinking. So I mean, like, even like people who commit some of the worst acts you can imagine, you can even empathize with those kind of people. And if you put yourself in their shoes and you consider what they have to go through. Like like recently, there's discussion. I don't know if you watch a YouTuber called Destiny. I don't know if you've come across him.
Now, by the way, I just want to give you a heads up.
Yeah,
I'll have to end in a couple of minutes.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
No
I'll
worries.
let you say this, and then I'll tell you one thing, and then yeah.
Destiny. Well, he's recently debated Daniel Hakikatju. He's just recently debated him. He had a guy called Mr. Girl on his channel who's a paedophile advocate, right? He advocates for paedophilia, and he's convinced Destiny that, or they had a discussion, and they now consider paedophilia to be similar to homosexuality in terms of it's just a genetic predisposition for being attracted towards children, you know, the same way as a homosexual is attracted to men, and it should be seen from that perspective. So now you have one of the best debaters online who is now advocating for the rights of pedophiles, right? And I think we're
Wait,
seeing
can
a
you link
change.
that to what you're saying here? Like, what's the
Yeah,
link
I'm
that you're
saying that empathy towards people who may think or have the most heinous acts is actually should be admired in society. If you're a progressive, if you consider yourself to be a progressive, you should
Wait, what does that have
be
to do
standing.
with the best debater or one of the greatest debater or whatever you labeled him
Well,
as?
we're seeing a shift. We're seeing a shift now. We're seeing a shift in
Do you think
people.
that's a good thing?
I think
That
it's a brilliant thing. I think
you
it's a
think what that
fantastic thing.
debater was his mind being swayed was a good thing?
It was the best thing.
Okay,
The best
yeah.
thing. Honestly,
Are you an advocate for that kind of thing?
I'm 100%. It's the people who I defend the most are the people
Okay, well,
yeah,
we're gonna have
the
to
people who are
strongly
hated by
disagree here.
society. The people who are
Okay,
hated by society the most. I'm willing to defend them more than
okay.
any other
Well, I
person, and
have
I'm
to
willing to
disagree.
empathize with them
Oh, okay,
more than
but
any. Yeah,
all
yeah.
right, no, I'll have to end the call here.
Okay, no worries.
All right, bye. That was extremely bizarre. Not gonna lie, and some people are saying that's a troll. I don't know. That would be a very uh, smart, intelligent troll to come in from that angle. I vehemently disagree with all that. Let me just make that very clear. That was so stupid. I want to go back and I wouldn't call anyone stupid if it wasn't for that his end position right there. I'm trying to gather my thoughts, and because I had so many things I wanted to say, but I didn't want to interrupt when I really should have. So being swayed on a position, even if you're good at debating or whatever, doesn't mean that that position is correct, and certainly not a position like that. So what he's describing in theory, which is standing up for, or not standing up for, trying to rehabilitate people who are in, in difficult situations that led them to be horrible people, in theory, maybe, but that's at the bottom of the list of things that we should be doing compared to more urgent, more obvious cases that we should be handling. So no, I will not start a hashtag for, not executing the people who lynch that person. There's millions of people who are on death row for reasons that are a lot less justifiable to kill them for. No, 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 no. Everything about that was anyway. I don't know how to vet people before putting them here, but it's unfortunate. Let me get to some comments that I had put aside. So in the poll that I put here, I'm asking people if they've heard of this example of see how how hot the stovetop is. Now hell is a lot hotter because we were taught this as children. And Fridge Magnet is saying once a scholar came out to town and gave everyone matches to put on their figure for 5 seconds, scare everyone into believing. Some kids used the matches to burn a car bumper. I LOL, love you. Thank you. That's horrible. That's horrible, and that's the reality that a lot of us had to live with. And it's funny how when Westerners hear about this, they say, "Oh, that's horrible! Like how that's child abuse." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's normal to the point that no one sees this as abusive there." And this stems from religion. I mean, even if you don't actually hold a match to the kid's hand, you're terrifying them of this fictional idea. Anyway, another comment. This was a good question. How did disbeliever reconcile the concept of justice? It was if there was no afterlife. That was about the previous caller, and it also I wanted to touch on something else, but I won't right now, which is what is justice in the afterlife? Is punishment to the person who did a wrong thing justice to the person who was wronged? That's a bigger point. Someone said Aladdin is the butterfly that causes a tsunami. I'm not trying to cause a tsunami or anything, and people keep thinking that I'm targeting believers. Not really. I'm trying to talk to a wide audience, but one of my priorities is ex-Muslims. It's reassurance. It's giving them a voice. So if it happens to come across believers, um, good. But I'm not really going to them and advertising stuff. I invite some of them to come and talk if they'd like to, but they're not my priority really. And if someone's faith is shaken by what I'm saying, then maybe that's a good thing. And someone said, I disagree with the caller. Yeah, about the point of an outside influence has to be the reason why you change your mind. And Zagros says, as an autistic individual, I've always been incapable of faith based belief. If there is indeed a Muslim God, he created me with the proclivities to be hyper skeptical of anything. Absolutely. I don't think I'm on the autism spectrum, or maybe I am. I have no idea. But it speaks to this hunch that I've always had that it just some people are just different in the way they think. It's not always good or bad, but it's just a different approach. And no matter how you try, a faith-based approach will not convince them, and it's unfair to them for God to have tortured them. And if you're a believer and you hear me say this, you might take it out of context and think, "Oh, he knows God exists, but he's upset at the way he's handling things." No, because God or Islam claims that God is fair, and he has a system where this situation would happen, this scenario where someone is autistic and they just cannot believe in that method, then that God must be a liar. And unless Allah is a liar, then Allah doesn't exist. That's how I think about it. Someone says, I am X sexy, that meaning that you, I don't know, uh, you haven't been keeping up with your health and body and stuff. A couple more comments before I get to the next caller. Free will is what makes us humans. It is natural will that is free from influence from anyone. It is not derived from politics or religion and is not endowed by religion and politics. I don't think that's what makes us human. What makes us human is our classification that we're human, but what's different between us and other life forms that we're aware of on our planet is that we are clearly more intelligent and articulate, and we're able to communicate a lot better than they can. Their communication is limited, their intellect seems to be limited. There's a lot more that makes us human than this idea of free will. And the last comment, yeah, it was about the previous caller, so never mind. That was bizarre. So I'm next. I am taking this caller, sitting like an infidel. I'm adding you in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going? He has a
Hey,
photo of
Lee,
Muhammad
how are
Hijab
you?
shirtless. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, I just wanted to put that picture up there. That was funny.
Okay,
You keep spreading those wings and flap them and cause that tsunami. Keep doing your work because it's enjoyable.
thank you.
Yeah, the previous caller was a bit weird, a bit strange, I would say.
It is an understatement. Yeah.
Defending the other side when the atrocities that they've committed. But anyway,
Well, 1 second, I just want to clarify something. I
sure.
will not mock anyone for what they come out here and tell me, except if
Mm,
it comes to a position so absurd. I mean, you can
yeah.
believe in something that I disagree with, but not to the point of defending pedophilia. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I think mockery is a really good tool to show how your belief is sometimes can be absurd, and pointing that out. But look, I'll talk a bit about my journey so far through atheism, if that's okay with you. Um,
Sure.
so I was born in Malaysia to a mixed family, Malay, Muslim, and Chinese. And from a very young age, I was told to, fast and pray as much as I can, and just be terrified of hell. And I remember at night I would pray every night. I was told, you don't want your parents to go to hell, do you? So stop praying to Allah, and I'll recite all these phrases. And surprisingly, I still don't know what they mean to this very day. Al Fatiha and all those other phrases. But as I grew older in Malaysia, I started to sort of question these things about why was I fasting? What was the reason? No one told me. Why was I reading the Quran? Why can't I eat pork? Even though I tried it when my grandma from the Chinese side fed me some pork. She probably would be in trouble if they knew. And the question of hell. Why is God sending my parents to hell if I miss praying or miss saying a few words before I sleep? It just all didn't make sense. And then I was sent to a boarding school. I remember vividly. There was a session in the surah, the mosque, I think, and lights would turn off, and it just terrified me. And then I just questioned it again. I said, why am I being put through something terrifying in the name of Islam and being a Malay and being a Muslim? There was a horrific event that happened there as well. I think there was a boy that was raped. I didn't report it because at that time I didn't know what happened. But all these things sort of made me question the religion and validity of God and the existence of God. And when we moved to the Western world, I met different people, different backgrounds, and started to learn about different cultures. But the main thing that really brought me to atheism and to where I am now is most likely Matt Dillahunty. Listening to him and his talks and how brilliant he counters the arguments, and using a lot of that, I came to where I am today. And I guess what I'm trying to do now is, I know it's some people may frown upon it, but I'm trying to convert, or trying to use, I don't know, rationality, and convert people within my family to this side, and to take away from Islam, and yeah, and that's where I am right now. So if you have any questions at all,
Oh yeah, I do.
okay.
So a couple of things I wanted to ask about your atheism and the deconversion of other people in your family. And to comment on something, by the way, just in general, I don't know enough about, like, when someone cites Dawkins or Matt. I don't know enough about their whole personality to say, I really like that guy or I don't. I've heard about their contributions to this kind of movement, and I understand that they have helped a lot of people think differently, and you don't have to absolutely love or hate a person to agree or benefit from something they said, and not necessarily everything. Anyhow, I was going to ask you, what do you believe as, what is your atheism? What does that mean? Do you believe that absolutely God does not exist, or what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I would say 99% sure. I don't know, actually. I'm 100% sure that there is no God, no afterlife, no hell, no angels, no soul. There's no soul, spirit. It is purely as we see, the way the natural world is. So there's no, the card readers, psychics. I'm completely 100% a believer of this natural world. And most atheists would say, we lack the evidence, so there is no belief for God. Whereas I would say I'm more of a strong atheist. I would say that there is no God. God does not exist, or gods don't exist. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you my position on that.
Sure.
For a couple of reasons, I don't say gods do not exist because,
Mhm.
as a general concept, the concept of God is man-made. The idea of what a god is, it's defined in so many ways. So what God are we even talking about, or what gods? Is it the gods who created the world and then they're standing back, and or they're each in charge of a certain physical matter like rain and things like that? Even the angels in Islam are in charge of these things. So I think, since the concept was never proven to begin with, I don't even need to take a position on it, as a definitive position of it does not exist. Someone gave an example, I can't remember who, but the example of the giant teapot in the sky. I don't have to tell you definitively that it's the invisible teapot does not exist, because you've never proven that it does. So anyway, that's my position on it. And it's also, it gets me into pedantic arguments about, people who try to argue about God as a concept, but their conclusion is therefore my God, which doesn't follow, so it's kind of a waste of time. And I've learned that my time and mental energy are very valuable. So I try to concede as much as I can to get to the point. So I would tell someone, let's presume there is a God, right? Let's start from here. How do you prove yours? And yeah, so that's how I feel about that. And about sorry, go ahead.
So I just want to clarify. I think that position that I use of there is no God for 100% certain, I will use that with fellow atheists or people that are not religious in any sense. Whereas if I'm speaking to a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim, I would use that position where you come to me with your claim. You're the one with the positive position. Is your burden to prove that your God is true and your religion is true. So, anyway,
Okay.
sorry. Go
Makes
ahead.
sense. No, that makes sense. And the other thing I wanted to ask and comment on, deconversion of your family members. So my thoughts are the reason why I usually advise people not to do it is because it can get very messy, and especially if the person is not in a position of independence, they like they might get in trouble for it. It might make their life more complicated. It might not work, and not only that, sometimes their family members are just way too old and deep into this that their attachment is just it's almost impossible to let go, and it might cause them some turbulence and confusion that could be extremely detrimental to their mental health. So if their religion is not really hurting you and they're, for example, accepting of you and things like that, there is no need to go down that process. And I'm not talking about your case, I'm just saying in
Sure.
general. But in many cases, I don't see, like, for example, if a Muslim were to hear you, they might think that's evil of you. You're spreading corruption in the land and so-called, so on and so
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah,
But
of course.
how come they get to do da'wah? You get to do your own da'wah. It's
Exactly.
more than justified within your rights, within your moral rights. If anything, it's kind of a moral responsibility. You might see it in a way. But why do you do it? What's your motivation?
I'll before I do that, I'll tell you a quick little story. Hope I'm not taking up too much time, but I recently told my father. I think he knew for a while that I sort of was an offense, but I think anyway. I told him that I came forth to him and said, "Look, I'm an atheist. I've been like that since I was 12 years old, as far as I can remember." And funnily, I posted a picture of pork on my Facebook, which is obviously a big no-no, which I never understood
Like a
why
dish that
alcohol.
you're eating or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I made some roast pork, and I never understood why alcohol was okay to consume by some Muslims, but then pork is like the 100%
That's a
no-no.
thing in Malaysian culture, right?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And obviously his family, or my family, the Muslim side saw it, and they overreacted, and they obviously blamed him. And I sort of did it in a way to I probably shouldn't have done that, and thinking about it, I probably shouldn't have approached it that way. But then I think about it and said, well, this is my life. If I wanted to post something that I like to eat, why should it matter to you? And I guess to your question was, why is that what was your question? Why I do it?
Yeah. What's your motivation
Um,
behind it, or what's your goal, so on?
yeah, I think I believe in the truth, and to me, and obviously I think to you, being an atheist as well, the truth matters, and the truth guides the life that we live in. If you are bound by the constraints or the prison that religion puts you in your head, you're obviously going to act in a different way than if your mind is free. You would, love people better, or treat people differently. Then your mind is captured in this little prison that my father and the rest of his family are in. I remember one of my uncles is an imam of a local church, local mosque, sorry, and he told me that the other half of my family, which is Chinese, are all going to hell, purely for the fact that they're not Muslims. And I just thought, well, if this is true, then you better tell me why it's true. And we spoke about it for hours, and he didn't really, give me any real solid answer. It was all based on the book and based on the hadiths and Muhammad, and we don't want to go into it, but I believe strongly in the truth, and the truth is that they cannot know 100% certain that their God is real, and to lead a life where everything is according to that it's absurd. It's absolutely absurd, because if you believe in a teapot, around Jupiter, but that's the only belief, that's fine. But if you believe you can't, love the same gender, and that's going to lead you to hell if you do, that's just messed up. And we've
So
evolved
you
as a
think
society.
it's about the consequences of that belief and how it causes harm? Is that what you're saying?
Of course.
Mhm.
My father, for example, because that I am now an atheist, he thinks it's all his fault, and he thinks that he might be going to hell because of that, right? And so that's why I think if I can shed some truth or use some methodology to, explain to him, look, your prophet is perfect, but he raped a 9-year-old, or your God is real, but he allows genocides and all those things. I want to free his mind, and I think I have an obligation to him as his son to let that happen, rather than say, hey, okay, you live your life, be miserable that your son is an atheist. I think it's better if I try, and if I can. If I can't, then that's fine, but I'll still love him, and I think he still loves me as well. So, but yeah, that's why.
That's you know what, it's very justifiable in your case. Obviously, it's not my position to tell you whether it's a good idea or not, but
Oh no,
I just
please.
wanted to say,
Give. I'm more
I mean,
than
like,
willing to
people
criticize
forget that
and
I'm
all
just some guy. Like, I don't have,
Mm.
I mean, the experiences that I have are mine, and then what I hear from other people. So maybe I have a little bit of an edge there, but it's still like a small sample. But anyway, I just wanted to give my opinion as some guy that it does sound justifiable, because it's unfair, or it feels cruel to just let your father feel that way about hell and about you, about your relationship, and just not try to change his mind. So, you know what, more than justified in that case. And yeah, before I let you go, there's one thing I wanted to comment on. So I think my theory on why people or Muslims are more attached to the no pork rule than the no alcohol rule is because it's easy to resist pork. I mean, it's just food. And to be honest, there's a bit of a weird taste to it. If you weren't born eating it, it might not appeal to you at all. But alcohol, there is some appeal to it, and it can be addictive, and it is, fun in a sense. So they can sin and then undo the sin or repent for it or something. But that's my theory.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, the first time I tried pork belly, I was in Scotland, and it was it tasted like nothing I've ever had in my life, and I thought, wow, I can't believe this. What you
You're
guys
missing
are
out.
missing based on the book, it's just pork. Like, nothing's happened
Well,
to me
I
so
have
far.
to agree to disagree on that. I think I haven't talked about this much, but bacon tastes good, right? But pork in general, it has this weird aftertaste that I don't like unless it's cooked well.
Yeah.
Unless it's like cooked with spices and stuff, like
Yep.
Szechuan food, for example, fantastic. But usually not really my thing. But anyway, that's fine. That's an interesting disagreement to have. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for sharing today and for
Not a
joining
problem.
us.
Yeah.
All right.
Praise
Have a
to
good
Allah.
rest of your day.
All right.
Yeah.
See ya. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. So a couple of comments, but actually quickly, I'll get to global, their call before I get to the comments. So I'm adding you in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm an ex-Muslim from India. I'm
Okay.
really a big admirer of your work. You do a lot to, bring all the ex-Muslims together. I feel from around the world. So I would like to talk about like 3 important things. First, I would like to talk about how I came to this conclusion of my beliefs, and second, I would like to talk about how being an ex-Muslim in India right now is a very tricky situation, and I'll also talk about like, how that plays into even like the types of people who come into your live streams and stuff. And the third thing I want to talk about is how like there's different moral standards for Muslims and other people in the West. So yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I'm in my later teens, not really telling what my age is. So I come from a very liberal family actually. So I wasn't really introduced to religion like in a very aggressive manner. So because of that, I think that really helped me in forming my belief systems overall. So when I was growing up, like when I was like 7, 8 years old, like my initial reaction to religion was not really acceptance of it, because I felt like it was just such an abstract concept, like everybody had a different religion. Obviously in India, it's a lot more, the society is like really open and everybody comes from different faiths and stuff like that. So it's really like you get an introduction to so many other kinds of people that it's just like not possible for you to just feel like, yeah, my religion is the best and stuff. So in that sense, like it's in like I'll tell you a small story. When I was really young, I was like all my friends would be like praying before the exam result, and I would be like, well, the exams are already printed, so it's not like God can physically come and like change the result. So that was like my like beliefs that when I was like very young, like 6-7 years old. So initial rejection was like the rejection of religion and God as a whole, but then later on, as I started growing up and I looked into the moralities that are often prescribed in Islam,
Wait,
within
one
Islam,
second.
I would say, yeah.
I know you're in a rush. I know, but people are asking you to slow down a little bit. I just want to
I'm
make
so
sure that they
sorry.
understand what you're saying. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So like when okay, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry. Well, you were talking about the exams and how they were already printed, so you didn't really feel much of an attachment to that faith, and yeah.
Yes. So as I grew up, like initially it was like a rejection of the like whole faith in general, but like as I grew up and looked into the moralities that are prescribed within Islam, I felt like, okay, this is definitely not something I can ever subscribe to, basically. And that's how I came about my decision.
Okay. And how easy or hard was that for you?
It was personally very easy because, as I said, like religion was not something that was really aggressively given, like introduced to me as a child, like except for like I would say like festivals. Religion was not really a big part of my upbringing, and like some cultural influences here or there. It wasn't a really big deal. So for me, it was easy, and like with my parents, the deal is kind of like, as long as you don't go about proclaiming it to my relatives and stuff, it doesn't really matter.
Okay, that's an interesting perspective. Yeah. Yeah. Is there? How do you? Do you say something that you wanted to talk about the how it is in India, the Hindutva movement? Yeah.
Basically, the problem is in India, the Hindutva movement is gaining political momentum, and in this movement, it's basically like what the equivalent would be like political Islam. So it's like political Hinduism. So not all Hindus subscribe to it. Most Hindus are generally not subscribers of such belief systems, but they have a strong hatred for Muslims, and often what they would do is they would try to use the stories of ex-Muslims to essentially like use them for their movement. So because they hate Muslims so much, and they hate and like basically they want to treat Muslims as like second class citizens and not really like give them the rights. So essentially like they would use like the ex-Muslims, and they would just essentially like tell them to like do this like I don't know how to explain this,
they're
but
hurting
like
us in so many ways, and I always comment on that.
exactly, because exactly. Like I was in Federal Noodle stream, the one she did with Yasmin Muhammad, and I said something along these lines. It's really tricky to be an ex-Muslim in India because you don't know why someone is supporting you. Essentially, it's like in one side, it's like whether they're supporting you because they genuinely care about you, or whether it's like their own interest in the whole sphere of the politics of it.
See,
so,
I want to comment on something. See here, this person is saying she sounds like a fake Hindu ex-Muslim, which is funny because you're criticizing the Hindutva moment. But people like Hindutva who try to support us for the wrong
like
reasons.
As I was telling you in the Yasmin Mohammed thing, instantly like somebody like like tagged me in the comments and started attacking me for saying the word Hindutva. Even like saying the word Hindutva means like, oh my god, you're anti-Hindu and stuff like that. So it's just like it's really difficult to say you're an ex-Muslim, because in India right now it comes with a lot of baggage, and even a lot of your followers, even within like your own like streams, you will often notice like these kind of comments that are just like really like just like they don't want to even give like Muslims like basic rights, which is really hurtful. It's just so sad because it's like we don't hate Muslims, like we genuinely care about them because they are our family, they are our friends, they are a lot of other people, right?
Yeah,
that we genuinely care about. So yeah,
I wish they understood that, and I would hope that
exactly.
someday. I remember that meme about
Like,
someone was messaging another person, and they said, "What sect of Islam are you? Are you biryani or pulao or something like that?" And it went viral all over the internet. And people don't understand that this is obviously it could very easily be faked, but also if it's real, it doesn't prove that ex-Muslims are fake. It just proves that there's this beef, there's this conflict between people in India, and they're trying to hijack our movement. And it's not as wide scale as people think. It's not that, for example, everyone who, or like a huge majority of people claiming to be ex-Muslims online are fake. No, it's a small minority it's a
very, very small minority, and I would say like more than like the people who are claiming to be, they are the ones like who are like really supporting us in like huge numbers. Like that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Thank you for bringing an Indian perspective to this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to share? Are you there?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about how in the West specifically, there's such different moral standards. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So in the West, there's
Now your audio's cutting out. I think there's
like
something
really
with your internet.
different moral standards for Muslims and other
Hey, I think.
people. I would say if
Sorry, I'm gonna have to remove you
you look
here.
at
Yeah, sorry, the internet is really yeah, she's gone. Uh, anyway, thanks for joining. I will read a couple more comments and then I'll get to the next caller. So someone's saying, hey Aladdin, a question. Do you support the people of other religions who only like you because you criticize Islam? In my opinion, I hate them. Those people are selfish. Their religious scripture is the same as the Quran. First of all, I don't know what the word support means, but by every definition, no, I don't support them. I mock them and I ridicule them and I point out to them. Well, at first I was nice to them and I still usually am. I tell them, look, this is not your space. Don't come here pasting like Bible quotes, thinking that you're achieving something or saying Muhammad is a demonic false prophet. Demons don't exist. Your religion is just as silly. It's just that you're not in my crosshairs right now because you're not my priority. Somebody else is already taking care of your bizarre religion. Somebody else is standing up for the rights of your apostates. You're not a concern to me right now. I don't want your support. And I've said that since day one because I don't want to become a channel where a big portion of my commenters and supporters are basically doing it to prop up their own religion. So yeah, I really dislike them and I have no problem blaspheming. I do it every now and then against other religions to remind them, Hindus, Christians, I don't respect your prophets. I don't care for you or your religion in that sense. So please, get out of our space. Unless you're a Christian or a Hindu who just truly cares about our rights and isn't here to try to push their religion, isn't here because they think that by knocking down Islam, their religion wins. Most of the people who leave Islam, for example, or if Islam goes down in numbers, it's not that more people are going to join Christianity. It's because they'll realize that this whole paradigm, this whole system is obviously man-made. So yours is going to go down too. So yeah, just wanted to mention that. And someone's asking me, Dark Media is asking, did you experience the angry phases as so many ex-Muslims feel, Aladdin? So I'm not sure what the percentage of ex-Muslims who feel that is. We don't have enough statistics, unfortunately, because of the nature of apostasy from Islam and how dangerous it is to talk about it, or even taboo in the most mild cases. So I don't know how much of them are actually angry. I went through a phase of well, I don't even know if the face is completely gone. It comes back every now and then. Frustration, because as I was talking earlier to with another caller, well, the bizarre caller, I do have empathy for people who are hateful towards me as well, especially the ones who are not, extremely hateful and extremely harmful. But it puts me in a position where I'm not sure how to feel anymore because, where do I direct this frustration when I see this unashamed, open bullying of ex-Muslims, starting from the religion itself? It's not about good or bad Muslims. I mean, Muslims who don't repeat these sentiments at us are just more humane than their religion is. Anyhow, so I experience frustration. I just don't know what to do with it. I don't know if I would call it the angry phase, really. Anyhow, and I'll take a super chat before I get to the next caller. Let me see. Thank you, really shady. You're saying Christianity is the whataboutism of Muslim apologists, so please save us the trouble. Exactly. Yeah, I have a lot of commenters who are here saying, well, every now and then they'd be like, the Trinity is a contradiction. I'm like, why do I care? Anyway, thank you for the super chat. Now let's get to the next caller, Leen. I'm going to add you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hello. Hi. Adam, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I had to talk low because I can't wake up my family.
That's okay. I'll talk
So
softer too. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's fine. I'm wearing my earbuds. So I am an ex-Muslim. I come from a mixed family as well. I'm not. I can't really tell where I'm from, but I'm
That's okay.
half Arab. Um, Basically, my journey to, I don't know, apostasy is kind of a boring one. Basically, I just had doubts and then realized, well, Islam didn't make sense to me, and then just kind of like changed my mind about Islam. I realized that the only reason I identify as a Muslim is because my family just taught me to be Muslim, and that's all. And I don't know, in a way, my heart has been a bit calmer, I guess, in a way, in the sense that now I don't have to worry about my non-Muslim good friends going to hell anymore, or I don't have to worry if, say, I don't know, the torture of the grave or torture of, I don't know, eternal hell, etc. I forgot prayer, now I have to suffer, etc. These all fears are just kind of gone, and I realized, like, one of the reasons that kind of pushed me back from being an ex-Muslim is, I guess, kind of the fear of nothingness and stuff after life, that Muslims try to kind of make it as scary, like, no, how can it be like nothing, and etc. Which is like kind of what scared me too. And it's also kind of affected by I think I understand why people believe, right? 'Cause, like, for example, in afterlife justice, I come from a place of war. Thankfully, I'm one of the fortunate ones who were able to escape the war. But I have followed this news, the news of wars and etc., and the things that people go through. Like, it's just not, oh no, it's not fair, I failed an exam, or it's a, no, it's like, it's just like the horrible, like, the prisoners of wars that go through like horrible trouble, or those children who die, the parents who lose their children, those who can't eat, those who don't have like a roof on their head, and that's basically whole their life, which is kind of makes sense why those people would hope for an afterlife. And I guess
Just
if
one
that,
second.
yeah, sorry.
I think you're bumping your mic every now and then. So just can you please hold it a little bit just so I can hear you
Okay.
clear? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, keep
Yeah,
going.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I
That's
guess in a way I believe why, like, I understand why people believe in this, and in a way this belief in itself is not necessarily harmful, but I guess when it gets to organized religion and it starts to tell other people what to do, other people, it starts to dictate morality, and I guess that's when it gets kind of harmful. And this is where I decided that, okay, maybe I can retain my belief or hope in some kind of afterlife justice, but it doesn't have to be how Islam made it to be, as in hell, heaven for, I don't know, heaven for Muslims, hell for non-Muslims, and that's it. It's kind of too simplistic that I just couldn't believe it to be the truth, to be honest. But another thing that I want to bring out is, like I wrote in the comment, but as an ex-Muslim, I also feel a bit a bit lonely when it comes, because in my real life I don't really have lots of ex-Muslim friends, if any, and online there's usually this kind of extreme views that kind of popular among ex-Muslim circles, either by
I'm curious,
ex-Muslim.
what spaces do you find this in, these extreme views?
Well, I see where they come from. I
No,
like
no, I
where they
mean,
come from.
like what, is it certain websites? Is it, I'm
Well, I
curious,
guess
unless it's unsafe to say,
from
but
online communities, as in Reddit, Discord, and things like that.
okay.
I understand it's either by non-Muslims, never Muslims, who try to hijack the movement, or by ex-Muslim who are understandably angry about certain things in Islam. But in some times in these circles, sometimes there's a blur between the criticism of religion and then this kind of, it gets to the people, the individuals, and this, when it leans to the other side, is when I feel kind of uncomfortable, because I was a Muslim once, right? And I don't really feel ashamed of that, right? I wasn't a bad person when I was a Muslim. I didn't hurt people. I didn't advocate for other people's, say, deaths or I don't know. And same for my father, my family, my friends, etc. And every time I hear the word Muslim, these are the people that come into my mind. And obviously, this is kind of a subjective experience. I know lots of Muslims who are bigots and who are totally vocal in pushing these kind of extremist ideas. But from my own perspective, these are not the people that come to mind. Like my own family, even myself is what I come to mind. I remember the days when I used to be a doubting Muslim, and the ex-Muslims that I'd see around me are usually ones that be like, I knew about three ex-Muslims in real life, right? And one of them would be like constantly curse his mother, say she's an idiot stuff just because she wears a hijab. It's like, whoa, wow, what an idiot woman, etc., etc. And would call us idiots for believing in God, and would say like, oh wow, you don't have reason, you are just believing fairy tale, etc. And same for another guy too. And I also had a long debate with someone who'd call me I was a brainwashed hijabi girl because, wow, you wear the hijab, what a brainwashed, I feel sorry for you, etc. And these kind of things kind of made me scared of being an ex-Muslim, because I thought this is what makes this is what being ex-Muslim about. Is it about I don't want to be a person like that in a way, which is thankfully I was able to find better people in the ex-Muslim community, and those people who understand the line between, say, criticizing Islam and the behavior of Muslims that comes from these, the ideas that are present in Islam versus, say, being, I don't know, directing the anger at certain individuals that most of the time have nothing to do with the ideology itself, especially how in many Muslim countries, many people who identify as Muslims don't really follow the scripture to the T. They do have compassion, they do have morality. Not lots of people don't advocate for, say, killing anyone who blasphemes, don't advocate for slaughtering people in front of schools, etc. So not even most at least even majority of Muslims are at least against the terrorist acts that are done by quote unquote Muslim extremists. And so yeah, that's kind of the point I wanted to bring.
Well, there's a couple of things no need to apologize. A couple of things I wanted to comment on and say and ask. Well, not a couple more, actually. So first, you mentioned how Muslims would tell you, that there's no meaning to life, or without no afterlife, and they'd scare you about that, and that kept you a little bit with your faith. And I just wanted to note that I'm working on a video that I'm releasing within a few days, hopefully, about this specifically existential crisis and how it's made worse by the religion and its followers. So I hope you give it a listen and let me know what you think. Yeah. And you said something about being lonely, and I also want to touch on that in the future. I think it's a problem that because we have to hide, it's hard to find other people like us. And I want to get us to a point, hopefully, where we don't even need to, it's not something that needs to be announced at all. Just like people in Western countries, for example, don't need to announce that they're atheist, ex-Christian, because no one cares. People don't discriminate against them for not being religious, and they're not singled out. Everyone goes to pray except this one person, and then that's how they are, pushed away from the community. That doesn't happen. So I hope we get to that point. But in the meantime, I'm glad that some of us are finding community. But as you said, it's a good point that some people scare people from becoming ex-Muslim, or they see that it's like confirmation bias when Muslims say that once you leave Islam, look at how your morality deteriorates, look at how you become a hateful person, and so on. They're latching on to these bad examples, and it's our job to point out these bad examples and call them out rather than just pretend they don't exist. Because I think part of what Islam and Muslim communities do in general is just, push the problem aside. Those are not real Muslims. Islam has nothing to do with this. Islam has nothing to do with that. But it's not working clearly, and we need to learn from that and actually address those people. So if you do see them in your spaces, everybody, please call them out, including in the comments. So I wanted to please stop me at any time if there's something you do want to say. And one last thing, you mentioned the compassion, and how most Muslims aren't even following Islam to the letter, or something along those lines. You're right. I think Muslims are better than Islam. I think their humanity usually takes over, except when it comes to certain topics, because it's just, you can't cross those boundaries. And that's what scares me. It's not that I think every single one of them would hurt me physically or something like that, but the possibility that they would side with anyone from their religion over anyone from my side is scary. And that is something that we have to worry about as ex-Muslims, and hopefully we don't have to worry about that any longer. But I'm glad to know that your journey wasn't extremely difficult, hopefully, and I'm glad that you made it to the other side.
I mean, yeah, kind of being a secret about it helps in a way. I've actually talked to a lot of Muslim apologists. I also followed lots of YouTube videos. I asked progressive Muslims, etc. And I guess this is the most comfortable answer that I was able to come up with. I still believe in God. And in a way, I do have a wishful thinking that maybe some kind of divine justice exists in afterlife, which is like, this is something that I believe personally, something that kind of keeps me going on, whether it's denial or not, I don't know. I'm obviously not gonna stop caring about this stuff. Like say Muslim would say well, God is gonna do it in afterlife, so no need to do etc. But this is not how I see it. I do wish there is, but in case there isn't, I try to kind of make this world as best as possible. I influence as best as I can in a way. I guess I'm more emotionally driven than say intellectually driven, which is I guess not necessarily a bad thing.
I mean, it sounds like you're still intellectually driven. I mean, you're still going to try to change things rather than wait for the end of the end of times for God to take care of it.
The end of times happened so many times before. It's just so ridiculous.
So give yourself some credit for that.
You.
I don't think your belief in that sense is harmful to you in any way. If it gives you some kind of hope and you're still not, stuck in your place because of it, then, more power to you.
Thank you. I also wanted to say that you're one of those ex-Muslims that doesn't really make me feel very alienated. I feel like you, even your earlier, I don't know, if you try to connect with Muslims as well, you try to actually be kind of neutral, etc. And while I don't necessarily agree with all of your, say, videos, etc., I really appreciate you trying to be more open, and you're one of the ex-Muslim YouTubers that I never thought that there would be, because all the examples I hear are usually those extreme examples, the ones Muslim likes push. Apparently some Muslim, a Muslim told me something about ex-Muslim worship a guy called apostate prophet. I'm no, we don't. No one cares about that guy. I sleep and I didn't even know he existed. It's just and I kind of, I'm glad that there are people like you, or even Infidel Noodle, who are are a bit milder in approach, and in a way you kind of I don't know. Yeah, I just like your approach in general.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
It's funny you mentioned AP. Someone's asking, is this associated with apostate prophet? No, it isn't. I mean, we've spoken before. I don't necessarily, really dislike the guy or anything, but this is its own channel. No. Well, thank you very much.
So
that was very sweet of you to say.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Okay, so I'll take a couple of comments before I get to the next one. I'm sorry, everybody. I don't think I could take any more callers. I have a lot of people waiting in the back, and I'm trying to limit it to 10 minutes. So, yeah, there's someone in the comments saying you should do it in like 5 minutes. Nim Grace, I think. Please don't tell me what to do. But also, yeah, the entitlement is bizarre. Anyway, Leen, I wanted to hear more about your thoughts. You said something about you disagree or you don't agree with all my videos. I'd like to know what you disagree with and why. You know, maybe write it in the comments, or if you come across it in a video, if it's safe to do so. Obviously, you know, tell me your thoughts. Okay, I'll get to a few comments and then I'll get to the next caller. Simo would be my next caller. Everyone else in the back, please let me know who you are and a brief summary of what you want to talk about. Dark Media says, thanks for answering my question. You always come across as objective, even if you're feeling irritated, so keep up the good work. Thank you. That's good to know. But I still want to emphasize I'm not objective, of course. I'm still, I have my biases, but I try as much as I can to be fair. So I can give you that guarantee, I guess. And next comment. By the way, people, I really appreciate any interaction, including likes. If you do like it, you know, don't just press like because I told you to. So, you know, that would really help the channel out. Let's see, next comment. I feel like people should focus on the things we can do now instead of waiting for something in the afterlife or end. I agree. And that's part of why I think the belief in the afterlife can be harmful. As long as you don't rely on it, then that's fine. But if you do rely on it to some extent, it can make you complacent and it'll stop you from, you know, helping people or yourself. Next comment. When I was a Muslim, I was mostly focused on the afterlife rather than improving my situation in this life. That's what I'm talking about. Please don't do that for your own sake. And next comment. Okay, so someone was saying about the previous caller about Leen. She sounds like a Christian at heart. We were talking about people like you earlier. Please don't come to our spaces to basically make da'wah for your religion. No, she doesn't sound like a Christian at heart. You don't get to take credit for being a good person or a kind-hearted person or whatever it is for Christianity. Just like Muslims say, it's the fitrah, it's the innate nature that God, Allah gave us. You don't get to do that and capitalize on it. She is who she is. So people can have these qualities without being a Christian. If anything, being a Christian doesn't predicate having these qualities. It depends on what kind of Christian you are, what version of Christianity you believe in. So need I remind you of the horrors that were committed in the name of Christianity over the years? Were those people Christians at heart? So, you know, please tone it down. And last comment I'll get to before the next caller. Hazi Baby says, I think the best way to deconvert Muslims is to discuss Islam with the less religious ones or those who are already skeptical. Discussions with the Dawah boys are useless. I kind of disagree with 2 points here. First of all, as I've mentioned before, my goal is not to deconvert people. I will talk about the religion however I want, and if it causes people to have doubts or leave, then, you know, that whatever, it's not on me. Especially that they're not forced to watch me. However, Muslims and other religious people, they go on national television. They put out their so-called content, and in many countries and communities, in the face of everybody against their will, to try to convert them. So I think it's, even if I were out here trying to deconvert people, that would be morally justifiable, or at least, you know, an eye for an eye, which is something that Islam does believe in. And I can give examples about that later. So anyway, that's not my goal, but talking to a less religious person who has doubts. So I do agree that I prefer talking to someone who wants to, who's open to talk. Like the person, the example that you gave, they already want to talk and discuss, and they want to think. But a Dawah person, they're closed-minded usually, and they have these prepared statement, or whatever, a student of a Dawah person, they have these prepared answers, these go-to, you know, they hear a keyword and they throw an answer at you. So I agree, it can be frustrating. I think there can be benefit to it. It's not my primary goal, but it can be beneficial because it gets you get a chance to demonstrate to people listening or watching how you think about things, how you answer those things. Because if you let them just spew their nonsense without being answered, then a lot of impressionable people will come across them and see the confidence in their voice and think, or hear the confidence in their voice and think, yeah, they must know what they're talking about. Or Simo Hijab taking off his shirt and be like, he's so passionate, he must be right. So there is benefit to be had there, but it shouldn't be my primary concern. I do like dissecting apologetics, my live stream series, because it's not about chasing drama. It's about taking apart the words of people who claim to have answers for the questions that they claim are answerable, the questions that they claim we left for, unjustifiable reasons. So it's good to hear them out and not misrepresent them. I would actually, hear out their point and then point out how it's flawed. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say about that. And the super chat, thank you very much, Fizi Afindi. I don't read those before I pin them. I should probably do that. Start an OnlyFans, $20 for 20 squats. Haha, jokes, keep up the good works. The good work. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, but thanks anyway for the suggestion. All right, so next caller, Simo, I'm taking you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, do you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about one point that was very important to me when I was deconverting. And I think that's trivializing Islam. I don't know why it's not very present on YouTube, especially in the international community, the community that speaks in English. I am Moroccan, by the way, and when I was deconverting, listening to Kafir Maghribi, I don't know if you know him, if you've ever heard of him.
Yeah, I have.
I think his work was very important, especially with his series mocking Muhammad in his Qabasat min Hayat al-Rasul, or chapters from the life of the Prophet. I think he did a very well job taking the content in Islamic theology and making a series about it. It's a shame that it's in Moroccan. Unless you understand the language, you won't be able to enjoy it. But I think it took the whole sanctity of Islam. And because at that point, when my faith was fading away, I was very scared, very, very scared. And I think that watching that kind of content helped me basically take off that this holiness of Islam and seeing Muhammad for what he really is, just a normal guy that was doing politics basically, because Islam at the end of the line is a political ideology. And I think it's very important to expose Muslims to that to such kind of content, and I don't know why it's missing, especially in the West that praises itself of being pro freedom of expression, but it's nowhere there. I tried, I looked, and it's nowhere there. It's a shame, really.
I don't know if I completely agree with that it's missing, but let me tell you what I think about what you said. So someone like Kafir Maghribi and other people, even if I wasn't aware of them, they have paved the way for someone like myself to be able to do this, be it in the same manner or a different manner. They've taken, the bigger sacrifice earlier on. So I'm really grateful for people who have done that, including all the ex-Muslims who have personally or not personally helped me along the way, like Abdullah Samir, for example. He really helped me get to where I am today. And yeah, I think that sort of dissent and trivializing Islam, like someone earlier was talking about AP, Apostate Prophet, and though we don't see eye to eye about everything, and we have different styles of talking about Islam in many ways. I see the value in trivializing Islam. He's doing that in the West, but obviously not in the mainstream media or something, though his voice is one of the loudest on YouTube for ex-Muslims, so he is doing something out there. And you're right, I felt similarly. When I was, and past my questioning phase, like I just couldn't believe in Islam anymore, I still had that little bit of residual indoctrination, let me say. Maybe residual fear, or this holy aura around Islam. You can't really make jokes about it. And then I saw people making jokes about it, some of them super offensive, some of them not that offensive. And it got me thinking, wow, like those people aren't afraid this is truly nothing but a story, just like people make fun of Christianity in mainstream media and everything. And nothing happens and nothing will happen to them. And it's okay to make fun of that idea. And even if it does offend people, there's a bigger goal behind that. Yeah, and so I do agree with all that. The part, and I do agree with you. In the West, it's missing from mainstream media, and I think, or at least, I don't know. Are you thinking about North America specifically, or because there are European countries where, like France, who are very
Well,
open.
France
Yeah.
are getting killed if they even draw.
That still happens, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I live in France, by the way, and
Mhm.
last year a teacher was killed because he drew
Samuel Paty.
Muhammad.
Yeah.
Yes, and this was very shocking to me because
Mhm.
when I was in Morocco, I was very moderate, especially the Islam of Morocco, let's say, is Sufi and is very moderate, is more on the Hermetic side. But when I went to France and I started going to the mosques, I was exposed to, let's say, the true Islam. And I found myself that I knew nothing about Islam, basically. And when I started reading Islam from the books, I knew what was there. And I don't understand why Muslims do not condemn such actions. And they say that it has nothing to do with Islam, although we know that it has everything to do with Islam. Even Muhammad commanded some of his men to kill those who insulted him back then. And basically nowadays Muslims who are in line with their religion, they just do the same thing. And I think this moral problem in Islam need to be addressed, and the way to be addressed is with mockery. I think this is the best way, and I don't understand why it is not used enough, especially for Muslims who are doubting or are skeptical. I think it can be very helpful for them to be exposed to such material.
Mhm. Well, let me say this. I understand the sensitivity. I'm not saying it's correct or it's justified, but the sensitivity around this topic is because people have this idea of Muslims being like a fragile minority that we have to protect in the West and in other countries, because if we do make fun of the Prophet, then people are going to start to use that against them and hate crime them and attack them. And it's political correctness. Someone is saying, yeah, that is what it is. I think it's more harmful than letting things run their course of people being able to criticize Islam while still not going out and harming Muslims. And something to say about this, which is a controversial opinion, it's not the fault of, I mean, it gets very murky. When someone says they're a Muslim, you don't know exactly what kind they are. They could be a Sufi, like you're saying, and like the kind of Muslims in Morocco, kind of loose, not really, adhering to everything. They could be, like you said, something real Islam. I think what you mean, or at least what I think about when you say that, is the Islam most grounded in Sirah and Hadith and the Quran. The other types of Islam are kind of watered down, and I'm not opposed to that. It's just that there's no solid basis for that. It's easier to actually point to scripture that shows this real Islam that's more harmful. And if someone is really adhering, if they're a fundamentalist and they're adhering to everything, they're going to be a more harmful person or support more harmful opinions. So the separation from, Muslims saying this is not real Islam, this is not real Muslim, so on, doesn't help anybody. And I also hope to see it more trivialized in the West, in the mainstream. I hope it doesn't mean that, Muslims will be harmed in the street, but they also need to do a better job of explaining what kind of Muslim they are, because it is justified to have this nervousness about, someone who believes that marrying children is okay or something like that, right? It's justified to have a nervousness and want the people to explain themselves if you're using the same label as someone who supports something so horrible. So yeah, I somewhat agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
I just wanted to say about the point about real Islam. I think the Islam, according to the understanding of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Sunni Islam, I think it is the real Islam, because I think the methodology of the Salafi scholars is objective at heart, because they go to the source, they go to the narrations, and they expose them to very harsh, let's say, criteria to be held as authentic or not. I think that Islam, and I'm sorry for saying this, I think that Islam is just rotten at heart. And when you go for the sources and when you're objective with it, you get the Salafi Islam or Sunni Islam. Because how can you, let's say that you are a Quranist or I don't know, from some other sect, and you want to argue with a Sunni Muslim, you literally go into a war with no guns, because you have no texts, you have nothing that supports you, and the Salafi has everything, has all the history behind him. So I think Muslims have to get to terms, or at least admit that there are problems with Islam the way it is, the canonical version, let's say. There are problems with it, and they should be more critical of it. I think it's possible to reform Islam. It is possible if, I don't know, if they get rid of...
I don't know.
Hadith,
Yeah, because you can't get rid of a lot of things in Islam without, being a kafir, basically. There's resistance to that because of the way that Islam is structured. So I don't know if that's ever possible.
Yes, but the only way, let's say, I compare all religions to like pets, You have the Christianity with their little dog, and you have the Buddhists with their little cat, and you have the Muslim that wants to bring to the building a monster. And you basically have to tell him no. And the way to do it, to let him keep his pet, is basically mutilate it. It's the only way. You have to get rid of the hadith. You have to get rid of the part that is Madani in Quran. So it is possible theoretically, but would the Muslims want to go with that? And I think as long as Muslims, moderate Muslims, tolerate the behavior of the extremist Muslims, we will never have peace. Basically, there are always going to be people who want to be conformed with true Islam, with fundamental Islam, and we're going to have problems always until they decide otherwise. And I think that it's for the people for the West, or people who think like the West, to push them, to give them a small push towards that, towards being critical of Islam, and to have Muslims themselves reforming Islam. And I think to do that, we need to take a step, us, even though we are not Muslims, in order to show them what Islam is truly.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Yeah. Well, thank you for
That's all. Yes, thank you.
Thanks for joining, Simo, and have a good one. So I want to acknowledge a couple of super chats, and I want to give an example of what he was saying. There's a video that's been resurfacing lately that about Muhammad hijab, and basically decimating the Quranist position. I have no dog in that fight per se. So if you want to argue about Quranism, it's not really my domain. I don't care, but I want to show that as an example. Let's first I'll get to a couple super chats. Zahira, thank you so much for the super chat. I feel like I have a moral responsibility to do what I'm doing, so here I am. But I appreciate your support. The Roaring Man had a couple of questions for me about verses. It's a little not on the topic here because I do want to get to ex-Muslims comments, but I appreciate it, and I will get to your super chats in a second. But I want to get to this video first, and then I'll take the next caller. That would be Skeptic, I believe. So 1 second, let me show you the video on screen. I guess I'm not going to have to play it right now, but I'll show you what it's called if I can find it right now. Okay, Allah's working against me, and it's hard to find it at the moment. Oh, there it is. Okay, so this video right here by apostate, none other than apostate prophet. It's a snippet from a 16-minute video where Muhammad hijab talks about how the if you just take the Quran without the Hadith, you will conclude that it's okay to marry not only 6-year-olds, but even younger than that. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. Yeah. So I'll get to one of these verses right now because because the roaring man has asked for it. He says, "We love you, Apostle." Thank you. Does the Quran 47:7 say Allah needs human help? So I pulled it up real quick. Let me put it on screen. So the verse says, "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in tansurullaha yansurkum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum." So in English, it does translate to that, but I don't think that's exactly what it means here. So what it means here is, oh, that they went away. What it means here is, if you tansurullah, as in you fight for Allah's cause, in a sense, yeah, why does Allah need us to intervene for him and fight for his cause? It's obviously just to get, the believers or the followers of Muhammad to act according to what he says God says. But the meaning in Islam is you're fighting for Allah's cause rather than it's conflicting because, yeah, you are supporting Allah in a sense. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I tried. It is a conflicting meaning in a way. Okay, I'll get to your other comment later. Hassan al-Buan is here. Thank you. He says it's often said that if an ex-Muslim doesn't know details, they were never a real Muslim. But most don't know much apart from fluffy Islam. Ironically, preachers are causing apostasy by bursting that bubble. Absolutely. I'm happy when we press preachers about Islam because then they have to tell us what it is. They have to give us the facts. And apologists and dawah people can be soft, and that's why my series, Dissecting Apologetics, I cut to the chase and I show you what the source says and what they are saying underneath all of these layers of apologetics. But I love it when the preachers just come out and say, this is what our religion says, and this is why. And the people hadn't realized that this is what their religion said. And that's when they have this moment of thought. And I'm really happy to see that happen. Okay, so I'm adding Skeptic and then BlueBerryLesbian, and then I'll get to the other. I'll try to get to as many callers as I can, but I'm sorry if I don't have time, but I will try. So, Skeptic, hey, how are you doing today?
Hi. I'm a bit nervous.
No need
How
to
are
be.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I think you're a great listener and you're
you.
very patient, and that's amazing. I don't think I could listen without interrupting.
I try. I write notes, that's how.
Give me a second. I'm sorry. So I'm not gonna give any personal details because it's really not safe. My main question is what do you do after you leave Islam? What guidelines do you have? How do you determine morality? Because personally, that was a huge issue for me. How do I differentiate right from wrong?
That's an interesting question. Let me try to answer it in this way. When you were religious, well, I'm guessing you were. Okay, whatever it was. If someone was religious, how do they, or hypothetically, if you were religious, how did you determine morality back then? Was it that you always thought, what does religion say? Like if you saw a poor person, for example, a poor person in the street, why would you give them money if you did?
I mean, it was because of religion mainly. A lot of things, like if someone did me wrong and I wanted to take revenge and I think I was justified in it, I would not do it because I would think it was wrong from a religious point of view. But now I don't see why it's wrong.
Right.
And I wouldn't do anything that would cause another human being pain. But why? Like, where does this come from? Because it's not, I don't think it's based on religion. I don't think it stems from God, because people believe in God and they do terrible things and vice versa. So, but where does it stem from? And there are a lot of times when your heart is in the right place, but you make wrong decisions, because you don't know what's right and what's wrong. I don't think majority of people understand, because I
Well,
think we're all just little kids trying to figure out life.
everybody is.
Yeah.
Everybody is. Let me let me answer it this way then. I believe that we do have some some people think it's caused by evolution, because people who are more social and when there's more social cohesion, those people survive, and then they have more social people and so on. We don't want to cause harm. It's kind of, it makes us feel unpleasant to cause harm. Obviously, for some people that isn't always the case, and that's why we have laws, and the laws are for our common best interest. You know, what's for the betterment of society for everybody. And there's always going to be differences there. Just and we're not always going to arrive at the right answer. Just as how these systems that we're given, be it by religion or whatever other ideology, they are far from perfect. If anything, they're more hard set, and they cause more harm than having a flexible moral, not just flexible moral background, but a moral background that can evolve depending on the situation. So there is no simple answer to where do I get my morality from. I think it really depends on the situation. It depends on the environment. It depends on what's. You can subscribe to so many different philosophies on this. Like one of them is utilitarianism. What is, in simple terms, what's the best benefit for everybody? So you gave me an example of why should you not take revenge. It depends. It really depends on the situation. So what's the harm that's going to befall you after causing this revenge? I mean, you're going to get the temporary satisfaction of, revenge, but then what? You're going to face consequences because you did hurt someone outside of the bounds of the law, or you're going to feel guilty about it even if the law never caught up to you. Eventually it's going to catch up to you more often than not. Unless the person truly doesn't deserve that, and that is the only form of justice, then in that case, then maybe revenge is justified. So there's no simple answer to that, unfortunately. But the fact that we're so used to having a system think for us and tell us what to do, that's why when we leave religion, we're left feeling like we don't know what to do now. And we would figure it out. Funny enough, this is again the next video that I'm going to release. We would figure it out, except that what's holding us back is our indoctrination, and the people from our previous religion, they keep repeating, you have no basis for morality. Whatever decision you arrive at, you have no basis for that at all. And it just keeps, digging into your head. So don't listen to that voice, and listen to your voice of reason. I think that's how I would answer that. Does that answer your question?
I agree with a lot of what you said, especially in the beginning, because that's my theory as well, that it evolved because it evolved in a way that it's in our best interest to help other people so that we can form a society, work together, and be able to move forward as a whole, instead of just focusing on immediate gratification and personal gain. Because human beings have this strong tendency towards their children. So you want to make the world a better place for your kids. So makes sense. Apart from that, I think many people leave Islam and they consider that the end of their journey. They don't look further for what they should do, how, like, they don't come up with a replacement belief system. They just go by, what feels right. If this feels right, I'll just go with it. And I think that's dangerous. I don't think that's a good way to go about life. If you get rid of an entire belief system, then you need something other in its place. Because I'm not a big fan of Islam, but if you look at the fluffy version of it, it has some benefits, because it's better than being empty and nihilistic and thinking there's no meaning in life and there's no afterlife and everything is pointless. Because after when I came to my problem, my rabbit hole, when I started sinking into doubts, this was the biggest issue for me. And for me, like, part of me thought, there's one way to get an answer, and that's to kill yourself. And that's very dark. And obviously I didn't do that because I'm here right now. But raising a human being or just growing up without any belief system isn't a good idea. It's about finding that balance. Where do you find that balance? Because I don't think raising someone with a belief system, it's okay to marry a 13-year-old is ideal either. Obviously not. or having sex slaves obviously that's terrible, so you wouldn't want to raise someone like that. So what do? Do you teach, do you follow the fluffy version of Islam? Do you follow another religion? And that's the main thing. Many people don't think about that. Many people just leave Islam and they're just like, okay, this is it. And
Well,
Friedrich Nietzsche talks about this in a lot of detail. Like, everyone loves to quote his line, "God is dead and we killed him," but nobody talks about how he later mentions whether or not it was the right thing, and what do we do now? What do we replace God with?
right. Well, I have some thoughts about that. And again, this is not to self-promote or anything, but literally my next video, I'm touching on that topic. You mentioned suicide because of nihilism and feeling empty and there's no meaning in life. Specifically, I talk about. Have you read the Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus? He talks about no.
mm.
He does quote Nietzsche, and he talks about something how reality or life is absurd, right? There is no inherent meaning to life that's outside of all of us. There isn't anything. The universe doesn't really care about us. There isn't anything bigger than us. So that absurdity, or trying to make sense of that meaningless universe, is the absurdity. And some people run into issues there. That's where you have an existential crisis. And he mentions how suicide is one of the ultimate answers to that, but also philosophical suicide is what you're describing, which is having to find another system to give meaning to our life and to give us, something to have faith in and follow. And it's not necessarily a wrong answer. If that works for you, it works for you. I would disagree with the part that says that, where you said that it's a necessity that every ex-Muslim must continue to find that system, because if you don't fall into that trap of existentialism, which is not your fault, by the way, it's not your fault that you ended up in that position at all. And I've been there. It's if you don't end up there, you don't need to find some kind of system to follow.
No, that's the thing. If you don't end up there, it means you already adopted a system subconsciously.
Not necessarily. Not everybody needs a whole system. I mean, you're saying it could be a loose. Some people kind of figure it out as they go. Some people don't have that introspection or being pulled into thinking about the point of life. They just take it one day at a time, and they're just focusing on themselves and people around them and so on. So I would disagree with that part, but that's not to say that you don't feel that way or that you're wrong in feeling that way. And if you're saying that, have you found that system, by the way? You're saying that...
personally, yeah. I think I have. And it took me a while, like it took me a few years. This entire journey took me years. It's not like an overnight decision that I just wake up one day and I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, before I ask you about what that is, you mentioned, and not to rush you or anything, after talking about this point, we'll have to take the next caller. But I wanted to mention out, you said the fluffed up version of Islam, or whatever, like the watered down version of Islam, maybe that's better than nothing. I will have to say no, because how far do you water it down? Like, what are you really taking from Islam that isn't harmful?
And you can't really water it down. You can't alter anything. You can't change anything. You can't change the Quran. You can't change the Hadith.
You don't have to call it Islam anymore. You can take whatever you want, the good parts of it, but at some point it's not going to be recognizable anymore. If you take out all of the tenets of it, and you just leave, nice sentiments like be good to your parents, if they're good to you, charity, that kind of stuff, that exists outside of Islam as well. So
yeah,
I don't think
I
you
agree.
need to.
I don't think you need God as a basis for morality.
No,
but you do need something for your basis of morality.
Yeah. Well, you don't necessarily need to strongly define it, is what I'm saying. In your case, and in a lot of cases like yours, you do. And like in the video that I'm going to talk about is not giving you the answer to that. It's giving you one answer, or how I found it. And I'm not going to be able to give people an answer for that. It's a journey that they need to go on. And well, there are personalized answers. What works for everybody is different. And not only that, what works in each situation is different. Your meaning of life could be something today, and then 10 years from now, it could be a completely different thing. Let me I mean, people are going to hear this again in my next video, but let me give you an example. If you're wrongly convicted of a crime and you're in a prison cell, your meaning of life, if you're religious, which I understand you're not, is going to be this is a test, right? I'm going to pray hard. I'm not going to lose faith in God because he's testing my faith and so on till you die, and then you'll never get out, and that's it. But if you took your meaning of life to be studying law while you're inside the prison and getting yourself out of there because you are innocent and being able to prove that, that is a good meaning of life. But once you get out, you're going to feel that emptiness again because you don't have that meaning anymore. So you need to shift to a different meaning, which is, for example, helping out people who are in that position. So to get to the summary of this, one of the ways to find meaning in life is to create work or good deed that you find meaning in. That's just one way. And that's part of what I adopt. So to ask you briefly, you said that it took you years and so on. What is the system that you found? What is your answer for your case?
I think that ideally one should align their existence in such a way that it provides maximum benefit to those around them while causing minimal damage. And
that's basically what I say, maximizing happiness and minimizing harm. Yeah.
Not happiness, but progression of human society, even if it means at the cost of my own happiness at times, and even if it means I will suffer, because suffering is a part of life, and that's fine. So the ultimate goal is to make the world better.
More than, I mean, when I say happiness, I don't just mean yourself. I mean in everybody around you. So it may depend on how we're defining happiness, but you mean progressing society as just having more people who are alive, basically?
No, just making a better world. Not minimizing suffering, minimizing the suffering that we human beings face, because majority of the suffering that we face is due to it's caused by other people.
Yeah, I think we pretty much see eye to eye about that. We're just talking semantics, but that was very interesting because I hadn't spoken to a lot of people. I mean, I've heard of these perspectives, but you just laid it out very clearly how you felt, and I just want you to know that I'm glad that you found an answer, and to everybody else, I want you to know this is not necessarily the only way to go about it. But if you see this, you don't have to just shut it down and say, no, that's not how I feel, therefore it doesn't exist. I'm glad you found your answer there, and I hope it keeps evolving as you live. Yeah.
I hope to hear the system you've established in the next video in detail, maybe.
I don't know if I'm gonna, because I've already edited it, I don't know if I go into it in detail, but I talk about this one perspective of which I gave a summary of, basically, of gaining meaning, or at least what worked for me. There's a lot more to it, and in my case, it's still evolving. So I don't think I'm able to come out here and make a video however long and say this is exactly how I find meaning in life. It's always a work in progress.
It's always evolving. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It was wonderful talking to you. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much for joining. All right, have a good one, Skeptic. Bye-bye. All right. Okay, so I'm doing 1,000 things at once, so I'm sorry if I'm missing some comments and so on. I'm going to get to some of the comments and super chats, and then I'm going to take the next caller. So getting back to the roaring man's comment, do you think Quran 22:15 encourages suicide? Okay, let me show you that verse, because I've come across it before, and it is bizarre, to say the least. So Surah Al-Hajj and verse 15. So it says, who's the person who thinks that God will not give Muhammad victory or support Muhammad in this world and hereafter, let him stretch a rope up to the roof, or in Arabic it says ila sama, so maybe to the sky, and basically, and then hang himself, and then let's see whether his strategy will work or not. Some people have read some diluting explanations of this, but yeah, that is a common one, if not the one explanation, which is practically, if you don't believe Muhammad, if you don't think that Muhammad is supported by God, go kill yourself and find out. It's weird how Allah talks in the Quran. He stoops down to the level of humans, and he's like, oh, this person, he's a bastard, or in some other definitions, he's this and that. Yeah, Allah's having beef with humans, just like Muhammad, when he gets angry, so does Allah. It is a very bizarre verse. Thanks for the super chat again. King Prince says, the question, how do I determine right from wrong, indicates how gaslit ex-Muslims are. They've been given the atheism is nihilism, you allow incest spiel. They're often taking it too seriously. Not necessarily. I mean, yeah, in many cases, it starts to get inside our head, this whole narrative that it's sad how not only da'wah people, but their followers, they seem to keep repeating it like it's some kind of gotcha. Oh, you have no reason to exist. Oh, you might like sleep with your mother. And they're so happy and giddy about it. And it's disgusting when you think about the psychology behind it. Let's say they are correct for a second. If I were in their shoes, I wouldn't be laughing at it. I would be mistaken in my opinion now, but I would say, just, please come back, or realize that you have no basis for morality. You might end up in making mistakes. It might end up being a worse world for everybody. I wouldn't be going out here and saying, you sleeping with your mother. It's just bizarre. So it does get into the heads of some ex-Muslims, unfortunately, and I don't blame them. It really depends on how vulnerable you are, how your situation around you is, how much you can quiet those people down, how young you are. There's a lot of factors to it. So it's unfortunate. Yeah. Thank you for the super chat. And Manor Right is saying, thank you for talking about Samuel Paty, Charlie Hebdo, and the Bataclan. Those cowardly acts got me to learn about Islam. That sucks for Muslims and Islam, because it's not just that this happens and there is scriptural basis for, leaving vagueness at least, or a precedent for it. Like I've spoken about a hadith where someone killed his slave, who is the mother of his children, or at least one child. I don't remember. Multiple children, actually. She had a child in between her legs as he killed her. And the Prophet just said, oh, well, because she would disparage the Prophet behind his back. So there is justification for this. And every time an event like this happens, not only is there justification and it brings negative attention to Islam, but more than enough Muslims just turn a blind eye or even support it, or they say, why would you kick a hornet's nest? So it's not a good look, and it harms them and their cause and their societies in general. And as humans, it causes them harm. So yeah, it sucks. Last super chat. Thank you, Summertime 567 time. That's a lot of time. Did you get your silky smooth radio friendly voice from a pact with the shaitan or your jinn possessors? Thank you. I don't really like my voice, or at least I don't like listening to myself, but now I got used to it because I have to edit my own videos and then listen to the video afterwards and put, timestamps and a bunch of things. So I'm okay with it now, but thank you. I just never know how to react to that. I used one of my 3 wishes from Genie on that. Yeah, okay. So now getting to the next caller, BlueBerryLesbian, adding you in 3, 2, 1.
Hi,
hey, how's it going?
Can you hear me? Oh, okay.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm so nervous.
That's okay.
But basically, the thing that I wanted to talk about, which I'm not sure is a bit different to what everyone else talks about, but it's the fact that I actually left my parents last year, so I'm estranged from them. And it's okay, don't worry. But yeah, it's just my journey in leaving Islam and trying to at least talk to them about it. It was very difficult. But I don't know, when I left, I kind of expected there to be more support from people who weren't in the community. So I ended up in a women's refuge, and they got me in touch with the police because it was, according to them, honor-based abuse, violence. But everywhere I turned, people just kind of didn't get it. For example, whenever I tried to speak to my social support worker from the Women's Refuge, she'd be saying things like, "Oh, do you want me to put you in touch with LGBT Muslims?" And it's just kind of like, I've already left Islam. I don't want to go back.
Yeah.
And whenever I'd get like calls from like police officers, this is in the UK, obviously, I think you guys can tell from my accent,
Yeah.
but get calls from them being like, "Oh, is there anything that you're worried about in terms of your safety from like your parents?" And I'd just kind of be like, no, but I'm kind of scared that if I speak up about this in public and I show my face, then I feel like the Muslim community is going to come after me for this. I don't feel safe to speak about this publicly, or to speak about this in terms of my peers as well. And the police said this to me word for word. They said, "Have you considered just not speaking about it?" So it's just very, yeah, we're just shut up from every sense of the word, you know? And online, if I try to speak about it, I get called Islamophobic, even though I literally was brought up in a Muslim family for most of my life. I was a Muslim. I was a devout Muslim. You know, came from a Salafi family. So I just found that.
I'm sorry to hear that. I have a few thoughts. I said earlier, reflexively, I said idiots, and I kind of take it back because, like, the social worker, for example, all they know of is this mentality of Muslims, again, being this fragile minority. So seeing LGBT Muslims, they're like, oh, here's a support group that has to do with your kind. So, you know, this is the best that we can do. And I understand it to some extent. I mean, I don't know that much about a lot of minorities around me, but the problem is people don't realize the scale of this problem. Like, I don't know much about, for example, Black communities in my area, but the problems that we face as ex-Muslims are way more severe than a lot of the problems that within those Black communities. I'm just giving a random example. So I feel like it's a moral responsibility for everyone to be aware of what's in their country, at least, or what's in their neighborhood or their city. And they're not doing that. Partly, and I'm speculating here, but in the UK especially, like the cops telling you to just not talk about it, they know what Muslims are capable of in the UK.
Exactly.
It's I hate to use this word, but it is terrorism, and it's terrorism now is not about the big explosions and the big events. It's about what smaller events, like a beheading in France, being supported by millions of people. That is terrorism. Those people, I don't want to call those millions terrorists, but they're supporting terrorism in an indirect way. And it causes actual fear where people are scared to take action. And in this case, not even action against Islam. It's action to support you in your just sharing your story. You don't even have to go out there and like fight Islam. You're just sharing your story. And people don't want to do that because they're afraid of who? You know, isn't that terrorism in a sense?
Yeah, it's silencing us and censoring us. You know, all these, I don't really want to use this phrase, but all these Western countries, they're always speaking about freedom and things like that, but it really isn't freedom. I guess I also wanted to speak about like what the previous speakers were talking about. So I disagree with the whole, oh, we should only criticize Islam and not Muslims themselves, because the people who they actually follow and, you know, like spread this ideology are Muslims. Muslims are the ones that are following the religion. And I just wanted to say that sorry, I'm just struggling trying to find the right words, but a lot of like my journey was influenced by Hassan al-Adwan, so it's really nice seeing him on here. Thank you so much for your videos. And so I wanted to say that Muslims are the ones that are following their religion. So as much as Islam is like the ideology, it's the Muslims themselves that are actually doing these things, because you aren't affected by some abstract idea, you're affected by people carrying out that idea. And also I wanted to say that, in terms of like the holiness of like Islam, the thing that shattered it for me was in Surah An-Naba, that one ayah which was وَكَوَاعِبُ أَتْرَابًا, which means
I mean, I'm laughing at it, but yeah,
it felt like I was having a revelation.
I mean, for those who don't know, by the way, Kawa'ib Atraba, it's promising people in heaven, women of full-breasted women of equal age. And I've heard the apologetic version is full-breasted means that they're mature to the point that they have full breasts. And I'm like, how is that any better? And then they say of equal age is equal to the person who's in heaven, which
why do you feel the need to point that out? Like that's
no, and it's not that. It's that they're all like equal ages to each other or something. And there's an emphasis in many cases about, the freshness of how young a girl is and how much of a virgin it is. And yeah, it's disgusting. And I'm glad you came across that. So many Muslims have not. They really have not.
And yes, the other thing that I wanted to mention was the fact that about the afterlife, a lot of Muslims, they use it to justify a lot of their trauma. Like, for example, my mum, she would just take whatever would come to her in terms of domestic violence from my dad and misogynistic insults and, not being able to get a job and things like that. But she would always say, oh, I'm doing this to get into heaven. Oh, I'm doing this for the afterlife. Like, this is nothing compared to what hell is like. They always use it to justify the pain and suffering in this life, which I think is really sad, because if you don't even believe in that afterlife in the first place, then they're subjecting you to all this pain, or because they think that they're helping you in, what seems to them will be forever. So...
I'm really sorry to hear about your mom. And yeah, I see this again ties into how you said something earlier that I somewhat disagree with. You said that it's Muslims, not abstract concepts, that are causing harm. But this is exactly an example of an abstract concept. Well, it's a combination, but the abstract concept being the afterlife and eternal, like justice in the afterlife and bearing through suffering, because that's part of God's test and things like that. It keeps us in harm's way, if not causes self-inflicted harm through thoughts or otherwise. And so it's not just that the people carrying out things in the name of Islam, even smaller scale things or smaller aggressions. It's also the concept itself. And in this case, the concept of life being a test and the afterlife. It makes people like women, for example, like your mother, bear through things they shouldn't be bearing through, thinking that there's going to be a better thing in the afterlife, or it amplifies their reward in the afterlife. And it upsets me because, yeah, I really hope that she gets into a better situation at some point. I hope that changes for her. And I do agree with what you said about how we should be criticizing Muslims. It gets tricky because when you say Muslims, everybody gets up in arms and they're like, not all Muslims, but a lot of these themes that we're describing are the majority, if not just a huge chunk.
There's a definite pattern, and when I mean that it's Muslims rather than like an abstract concept, I mean it's the fact that she's a Muslim in the first place, and that's why like she follows it, if you get what I mean, rather than it just being something that we can just debate about from a distance, like it physically affects people,
like God existing or not, or something like that.
But yeah,
I feel you, and it gets complicated again because of how Muslims are viewed as a minority in the West, or the
which I think is quite funny because Islam is the second biggest religion in the world, you know?
Yeah. And when a problem is far away from people, they tend to care about it less, which is understandable. But they don't realize that this faraway problem is the same problem that's in your country. Just because they're a minority here doesn't mean that all those problems aren't happening in these communities. And outward as well. Like, as you can see in the UK, they're terrified of Muslims now. And then Muslims have, they start crying about Islamophobia. Isn't the fear of this ideology justified? No, I mean, it's difficult because you don't want to fear every single Muslim that you see on the street. And that's not what we're advocating for in any way. But if it
Yeah,
gets to a point, yeah.
it's difficult because on the one hand, there's something else that I wanted to say. On the one hand, you have conservatives who they hate Muslims specifically because of the fact that they view it as a brown people religion, and it becomes more of a racism thing, and you know, their preconceived prejudices rather than the fact that it's like they follow a homophobic, misogynistic religion, you know. Which is quite funny because the conservatives, they also tend to follow, you know, Christianity, which is also homophobic and misogynistic.
It's difficult for us to find support when I reject that kind of support when I get supported by people who are, you know, for the wrong reasons. Again, like the racists or the people who would see us as one of the good ones in a sense. You know, that sentiment that,
yeah, definitely.
yeah, I don't like those people, and I don't want them to be the last refuge, because I see people gravitating towards that mentality, because if there's nobody else supporting you, and especially if you're isolated in your surroundings, if they don't have as much access to content like this or people like this in real life, it's all too abstract, and the real thing is the support that they get from the hateful racists.
And then you get people who they tend to gravitate towards extremism. And also, like you mentioned earlier about like the Christians and Hindus that are always like on the lookout to recruit us.
Yeah.
I've seen far too many of those, even in real life, not just online. They are definitely looking for, you know, since how when we leave the Muslim community, we're vulnerable, we're alone, there's no one around us, there's no communities, and we have to be secret. All the ex-Muslim groups everywhere are secret. We can barely meet face to face. But yeah, so they do try and they take advantage of the fact that you're vulnerable, basically.
Yeah, I hope that we get enough support. That's why I keep asking for support from other people, and even that is weaponized against us. I can very easily imagine this being taken by a Muslim, and they say, look, they're trying to appeal to Westerners. They worship the white man and things like that. And it's frustrating because they don't want us in their communities. And if we're in their communities, they want us to be silent and pretend that we're one of them. But they also hate hypocrites, right? Munafiqeen. So what is it? So when we go to other communities, which we don't blindly love or anything, they're just more tolerant of us. And even then, not the right way, not completely. They shame us for it. When we ask for support from, who are we going to ask for support from? Muslims? That's a lost cause. I mean, I try, but even progressive Muslims, they have to ground themselves in Islam at the end of the day. They have to support Islam over us. And like fundamentally, the concepts in Islam about us, you can't reject that. Even as a progressive. I mean, you can try, but it's difficult. I hear you, and I'm sorry, I don't have much positivity to add here, because I'm not really coming up with anything new.
No, don't worry, it's fine. I think it's just good so that people, they know about this, so that people are more aware of what's going on, how it physically affects people, rather than just like the morality of religion. Oh, and sorry, this is slightly irrelevant, but about like what a previous speaker said about like deciding morality or not. I was going to say, how do you decide what was morally wrong about Islam if we can't decide what's right or wrong? Like, she said something about pedophilia being definitely wrong, and it's like, how did you come to that conclusion if you're saying that we're all children? I just found that quite funny, but
yeah, I mean, yeah, I think everyone has a vague bundle of you know, sources that they get their morality from, and I think that through discussion and consensus, we can usually arrive at the best general idea for everybody, and then it could be more specialized from there. And that's how we should be deriving laws, but obviously nothing is ideal. It's just that I have to remind people the standard that they ask for, like when someone starts this discussion, especially coming from a position of, you know, I have objective morality from God and so on, they expect a perfect system that we provide but they disregard that their system is not even like has some flaws. It is flawed from the ground up. So we have to remind ourselves it's the lesser of two evils in a sense, but it's not even necessarily an evil. It's just, you know, it's the best option that we have.
Yeah, there are 2 points that I wanted to make on that. the fact that they expect all ex-Muslims to be the same. They think that we all have the set ideology that we seem to follow, which is, in their case, it makes sense because they all are supposed to follow Islam, the Quran, Hadith, and all of that. So they expect us all to be the same, even though we're not one homogenous group. The only thing that we have in common is the fact that we've left Islam. And the second point, I've lost what I was going to say. What were we talking about again?
Morality.
Uh,
And a perfect system of morals. And after that, I'm going to have to end the call just to take the next caller. But, just giving you a heads up.
Yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to say, don't give up, guys. There is always a light at the end of the road. I know that it's really hard and it seems like everything is against us, but we've already done so well. And my other point was that a lot of ex-Muslims, even though they tend to leave Islam behind, they still haven't left all of their prejudices behind. So I want everyone to kind of self-reflect from time to time about any like prejudices that you've kept from Islam, whether that's misogyny or homophobia, things like that. So I just thought that was very important. And don't let yourself get sucked into extremist groups. Thank you so much. Thank you, Apostate Aladdin. Sorry. Yeah, thank you for having me on. This is such an honor.
For joining.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you joining. Thanks a lot again. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Yeah, I'm really enjoying these calls. By the way, I just want to mention that. And sometimes my frustration shows, and that's just to remind you, I'm just some other guy, and I have my frustrations too, and I don't have the answers. Don't have all the answers really, and I don't know what needs to be done or what the conclusion is. How do we get people to listen to us? But I know that. I hope, I may eat my words, this might never happen, but if I'm ever in a position to be able to be more public about this, hopefully not just on the internet, not on a small channel like mine, but to take it out in the public, like actually, for example, go on TV and talk about this like others have before. I want to make this more mainstream. And it's sad that I have to worry about uprooting my whole life and whether, like I have to weigh the value of my life, not as in my death, but my life being somewhat tolerable in the closet. I mean, in the closet in the sense that not the whole world or whoever on the internet knows who I am. I have to weigh that versus the value that could come from being that public and vocal and open. And it's a difficult judgment to make because I'm inclined to think, it's in many ways I'm weighing the lives of many people against mine, and obviously that wins. But at the same time, I can't do what I'm doing if I'm not here, Anyhow, I will take the next caller. Let me double check who is that supposed to be. I think it was supposed to be, and I'm sorry if I'm getting the order wrong, but I think that is Harry Potter. So, yeah, I'm going to take Harry Potter next. No, wait, there's Ray, but he's not here. Okay, Nick is also not here. A bunch of people left. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to kick some people out of the studio just to, make it simpler for myself. You can still watch on YouTube. It's still going on there. So Harry Potter is next. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going?
Hi, am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello. Yes, I am an ex-Muslim from India, and I am 17 years old. And I just wanted to share my story about how and why I left Islam, and other things. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'd like to hear your story.
Yes. There's a very famous Hindu guru in India, Sadhguru. He has like a very large following. It's like comparable to that of Zakir Naik. So he's very famous for spreading a lot of like pseudoscience.
1 second. Can you get a little bit further from the mic so I can hear a little better?
Okay. It's okay.
No,
Hello?
actually, closer is better. Just go back to before. Sorry.
Okay, okay, sorry. Uh, so um, so I used to watch the videos on Sadhguru. He is like very famous for spreading a lot of BS stupid science, and it's like very funny listening him talk like he knows about science and stuff. So I was watching one such video, and I was scrolling comments, and I read one comment saying that why don't you make any videos on Zakir Naik? Then I thought that whenever I watch a Zakir Naik video, I always try to make sense out of his teachings, and I never like listen to it with an open mind. So then I tried to
By the way,
watch
one
some
second.
Zakir.
Can you slow down a little bit because people are finding it hard to keep up?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought that I always see other religions like Hinduism and Christianity very skeptically and very uh, critically. So then I thought that I should go with same approach on Islam also. So I started watching some Zakir Naik video, and I stopped trying to make sense of his teachings. And then I watched his evolution video, very famous that evolution video, and his video about like the 72 virgins. Then it all started to make sense suddenly, and the things that were embarrassing to me, like the 72 virgins and this that, all starting to seem like very funny and stuff. So it was like a very fast switch, like 3 to 4 days. Then I started watching all these videos like Apostate Prophet and Armin Nawabi. Then it became more and more clear that I don't believe in all of this.
Okay. I'm glad that it was a quick transition for you then.
Yes, yes, it was not very difficult because my family never forced Islam on me. They, like my parents, pray 5 times a day, and they are religious, but they never tried to force it on me. They were always hear their lecture about pray 5 times a day, but it was never anything like violent or anything.
Mhm.
So I was always very liberal, and I always supported the LGBT community and all these things, but uh, I was not sure about the other.
Oh, he got disconnected. All right, I'll try to add you later if you can join, but for now, I guess I'll move on to the next caller. We've got 3 more callers, and then I'm gonna end this stream. But yeah, so I appreciate you sticking around this far. Just want to mention to Leyla, please add your microphone because it's not showing and I can't add you. So I'm adding Muhammad in 3, 2, 1. Hey, how's it going, Muhammad?
Hi,
Hi.
can you hear me?
Yeah, can you come closer to the mic or speak a little louder if you're able to?
Yeah, sorry, no, actually, I don't think
Oh,
I could speak a little
okay.
louder, but is
That's
this
fine.
good?
Yeah, I'll just speak
Okay,
a little lower so that people can adjust. Yeah.
hi, I'm an ex-Muslim from the United States. I'm actually closeted at the moment.
Mhm.
I know I'm not really eloquent, but so basically basically I used to be a really fundamentalist Muslim, and basically within the last like 3 years I left, and basically, funnily enough, it ended when I went to Mecca because, like, honestly, when I went there, I was expecting this. I don't know what I was expecting to feel, but basically, I didn't feel what I thought I would feel when I went there, and so I basically my doubts started coming back, and so I was really fundamentalist, but I also love science, and ever since I was little, I would be uh, I would be taught like evolution, but they always say, "Oh, don't ignore this chapter in the science book because it's fake." Because Adam and Eve is actually the Adam and Hawa are the actual uh, progenitors of the human civilization, and so my doubts basically came back. Sorry, my voice is quivering. I'm actually like really scared right now.
Oh,
But
it's
anyway,
okay. If you're unsafe, like, please make sure to hop off the call.
no, it's fine. I'm just scared a little bit. So anyway, and so basically within the basically I went to Mecca, and all my doubts came back, and so basically, and I read the Quran again like multiple times. I was like, I know Arabic, so I was like, and I was actually reading it for the content, not just to read it for memorization. I've also memorized like a third of it, and I learned tajweed for basically all my life as well. And then I don't know how to say this, but like I kind of had a like internal mental breakdown, but I couldn't show it at all, except plus I was at Mecca, so I was supposed to be the happiest person in the world at the moment for a Muslim, and it wasn't really fun at all. So yeah, and also I'm also bisexual, which is also a double whammy. I know a lot of people think, oh, you're in the USA, you're in these countries. Oh, you don't have much to worry about at all. But basically, I'm actually like terrified every single day. But yeah, that's
I'm sorry to
basically
hear
me.
that. Yeah, I can't relate to the part about Mecca because I've been a lot, and I can relate towards the end. At first, I used to feel this sense of awe and wonder, and it was grand because when you go there as a child, it's just a new place. So in general, it's going to be amazing, but also given its importance and how big it is and so on, I used to feel something. And then towards the end, like my late teen years, that's when I realized I had questions. I didn't realize that I didn't believe or anything, but I had questions, and that's when I started to see it more for less impressive, and I felt guilty for not having that emotional connection as strong as it used to be, or not crying as the people around me were crying, um, because it was seen as a virtue. I don't know if you remember that, like people crying in Mecca or just in general while
Yeah,
they pray.
my dad he was telling me all when he came back before I went, he was like me all these things. He's like, oh, you're gonna feel like a newborn baby, oh, you're gonna cry, and he's like, oh, when you touch the Kaaba, or the Hajar al-Aswad, you're like, oh, you're gonna start crying, and I didn't do any of that. I don't know. Basically, it was like an overwhelm, but basically, I didn't like feel anything when I went there. I know Muslims are gonna say, "Oh, just you're going after your emotions," but I'm saying that this is what made my doubts come back. It's not what made me leave.
I mean, don't feel
And
ashamed for
so
that. I mean,
and
faith is emotion. Like the way that
yeah,
they
no, but
cry
I'm
about
saying for
things, it's all
Muslims too.
emotional. Yeah.
Yeah,
So did you touch the black stone?
No, I never. I was able to. It was too
Oh,
packed.
it
But I
was
did touch
too
the
packed.
Kiswa. Yeah.
I was gonna
I
say
only
then we
went.
probably touched the same spot, and that's that's a crazy incredible. But yeah, I guess we
Yeah.
didn't. Huh.
So anyway, when I came, basically, I read these things. There's something like I read some things like Surah. I forgot the surah, but it's one of the Hamim surahs. Basically, it says that basically the earth was created before the heavens, and you read that, and you read something like Surah Nisa A1, نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها, like created from one soul and created from its mate, and then they made all of humanity, and like that doesn't make any sense. And so
It's all metaphorical and metaphysical, bro.
yeah.
Don't you know?
So طارق when ماء دافق يخرج من بين الصلب والترائب, that's the stuff like that. And then سورة الملك ولقد زينا السماء الدنيا بمصابيح وجعلناها رجوما للشياطين, that one. So basically reading all these,
Yeah. God is using the stars or the shooting stars as missiles to hit the devils. Yeah, it's kind of like he's, instead of just dealing with the problem right away, he's waiting for them to listen first, and then he would maybe hit them, maybe with one of the shooting stars. It's funny, if anything.
Yeah.
So
basically, I'm just reading these things on Mecca, the holiest place in the world, and thinking all these things. I just felt so awful about myself. And so basically, when I came back, my parents they didn't allow me to have a phone because of doubts. They homeschooled me all my life to still interact with Kafirs. They
Wow.
What else? And so basically I had no outside connection with other people, and so basically I didn't know what to do because I couldn't ask my parents, and they would, I don't know what they would do basically, but my parents were very, very religious, and the thing that bothers me the most is that they front that they're actually like liberal to other people, but inside the house they're like completely different people, and it's really a shame. And so basically I basically, when I would turn 17, I got a job, got my own phone, and this is like 2 years later, and I finally was able to look at these things that I actually had doubts. Like I stayed in this like stage of limbo all this time, and then basically I couldn't really, after that, like couldn't look back anymore.
Well, I gotta say,
And so yeah, I'm still
yeah.
like super religious on the outside. I still like memorize photo of my Quran classes and stuff like that, and tajweed, and go to the masjid every week for Jumu'ah, and go for the 5 prayers despite COVID and stuff like that. But yeah.
I don't know how to phrase this. I'm not only proud of you, I'm inspired by you, and you have no idea how much I look up to you in this moment, because my struggle with it was difficult, but it wasn't that as difficult as yours. The way that you're describing it, you were cut off from the outside world, and you somehow still persevered, and you sound like hopefully you're an upbeat person. You do sound very cheerful. I hope. I hope you retain that positivity, because it's not going to be this way forever. Yeah, it's amazing that you worked hard just to be able to continue that pursuit for truth. Basically, how do you feel now that you came out here and told us?
Well, I've already told people, but it was on the internet, so it's not really like really new. But it's just basically talking about it to like people I can hear. I'm kind of like nervous about it, but
That's okay.
I'm not sure. I know a lot of people. I know Muslims will say I'm bragging or trying to like show how good I am, but like I wish I wasn't this good. And
Good at what?
well, like knowledgeable in Islam, basically.
No, and
because I've
notice
had
how
discussions
you're
with Muslims, and I say, oh,
yeah, you're anticipating what they're going to say. They're already inside of our heads, to the point that we have to think about what they would say about us before they even say it. So yeah, try not to worry about what they're going to say. I mean, you came out here, you told us what happened with you, and I'm sure everybody here will agree it's really impressive. And I don't doubt you. You're not flexing anything. You're just telling us your story.
yeah. No, because I was just told about that by someone on the internet yesterday.
Yeah.
So I try to keep an upbeat attitude. I still have like 2 more years of faking, which is kind of bothersome, but I guess I could do it after I've done it all this time. And I still have people to talk with. I mean, I have this one friend. She's like the best. She listens to me and stuff like that. And she's also in the same situation, so we can like kind of relate to each other. So yeah, it's also nice, but yeah.
Well, I want to, give you some, I don't know, silver lining, or hopefully you're thinking about it this way. You have a deadline or a goal. You have a timeline, so that's good. It'll help you. It'll motivate you to, keep going. And I want you to, in a few years, look back at this interview. Hopefully you still have it. Maybe download it, as soon as I'm done with it, so that you can listen to yourself. It's like a diary, and look at how far you've come, and what you've achieved since that. I hope you're proud of yourself now, and I hope you're even more proud of yourself in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before you go?
No, probably not. Just keep this interview as short as possible so I don't get caught.
Okay. All right, I'll let you go now. Thanks a
Okay,
lot
thank
for
you.
calling.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. All right, so you can turn down your volume now. I'll talk a little closer to the microphone. We've got 2 more callers, and then we have to go. Yeah, so I'm gonna add Stargirl right now in 3, 2, 1. Hey, Oh, I added the wrong one by mistake. I'm sorry, Stargirl. Hey, Leyla, are you ready? Okay, maybe in a second. Sorry about that. Hi, Stargirl. How are you doing?
Hello, can you hear me properly?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm such a
Mhm.
big fan of your channel. I think that it's so great. Just especially for, I feel like, younger generation, early or late teens, early 20s, the conversation's kind of starting to happen, and there needs to be, I think, more YouTube channels geared towards us that, you know, answer those questions in an honest way. So yeah, I love your channel.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk about feminism amongst a lot of new age Muslim women and just kind of how contradictory it is to Islam.
Mhm.
I just find that personally, feminist ideologies, I wouldn't say, like, I wouldn't personally call myself a feminist, but there are aspects of feminist ideology that I do agree with. And I think that I do want overall progression for, or gender equality for, between genders, of course, but to, you know, be at the forefront of a movement while at the same time subscribing to an ideology that contradicts it and trying to kind of not only like subscribe to that ideology, but to parade it as if it's pro-feminist and treats women with any sort of dignity is just something that I personally, like, it really irks me, I won't lie. So I just wanted to talk about how a lot of misogyny within Muslim communities is not just because of culture, which is like a often cop out, but like
Mhm.
direct misogyny from scripture, from the hadith, from the Quran. And I just want to know maybe some of your experience with having to defend that or having to distinct between culture and religion in that sense.
So I'm glad that you're talking about it because I'm often told to shut up because I am not a woman. But I don't think I do agree that men often they interject when they shouldn't when it comes to talking about women's issues. But in this case, I'm not talking about them because I want to interject where I don't belong. I talk about them because I'm unfortunately one of the few people who are in a position to be able to, especially that women have told me specifically, and they say it all the time, it's harder for them to be in this position. That's why, I mean, off the top of my head, um, there's not that many ex-Muslim women who are vocal today on YouTube. There are, and I thank them for their bravery, but the point is, we need to talk about this. And I've come across this a lot, especially how I started on TikTok. The amount of like vague wokeness that's on TikTok is toxic. The amount of support that they get from non-Muslims when they make some TikTok about how actually hijab is very empowering to women because so and so, not realizing that not only are they shutting down the people talking about their experience with hijab and the origins of hijab in scripture, like they're causing so much harm with this pseudo concern for a minority or what they see as a minority. The way that they sugarcoat how Islam is feminism and agrees with feminism is especially funny when you see people quoting actual Islam to shut that down. Like Muslims don't like it, or I don't want to call them real Muslims, but Muslims who stick to scripture, especially more fundamentalist Muslims, but even moderates in other parts of the world and moderates around us, they would shut down a lot of these sentiments. They would shame the so-called feminists, the Muslim feminists, because if they align with the LGBT, for example, or whoever shares these causes with them, they'll be condemned for it. So I just don't understand how they go hand in hand, and I will call it out every time. There's so much to talk about when it comes to women in Islam, and how do you feel about the conversation that's already out there when it comes to ex-Muslims talking about it?
Well, to touch on your first point about, you know, being told like to shut up because you're a man, I feel like that would be appropriate maybe in any other context, but Islam, because Islam has made it men's business. Considering, you know, like as a Muslim woman, if I was to be like living in a Muslim country, well, like I'm not Muslim anymore, but if I were to be Muslim, I would be living under, you know, the control of my mahram. And that's something that a lot of, I guess, Western Muslims don't want to talk about, like what it's actually like to live under, you know, real Muslim laws and to follow scripture. So I just feel like personally, like when it comes to the conversation amongst like ex-Muslims are like flawed like any other group. There are misogynists and there are feminists. There are people who are pro-human rights. There are people who subscribe to alt-right ideologies. So I feel like that conversation is very broad, and I don't really see it as often, maybe amongst ex-Muslim women, but even then it's extremely difficult to talk about. And I find that a lot of Muslim women are kind of have like this Stockholm syndrome. Like they will point fingers at every other source but Islam to demonize misogyny or call that the source of the misogyny they experience. And I just feel like it's so counterproductive. Like unless we're gonna have an honest conversation about how these things are derived from Islam, a lot of the misogyny we experience in our community today, if we cannot actually look at Islam in an unbiased manner, then there's no way that we'll be able to tackle a huge issue like women's rights. But,
I agree with that. I wanted to say, so you know what I call them sometimes, and I this may come off as a little dismissive or derogatory, but whatever. Sometimes I call them makeup tutorial hijabis. You know, the kind who, like, you're a hijabi having a makeup tutorial channel, and it's not that I'm trying to be a Salafi and being like, cover up, sister, but you clearly missed the point of the hijab, which is not to draw attention to yourself because the shaitan is using you as a pawn, or is using you as a pawn to entice men and so on and so forth. That's when you go back to the scripture. Why are you wearing the hijab? It's for this and that is demeaning to you as a woman. But you seem to hold these two contradictory ideas. It's cognitive dissonance. And I'm fine with them wearing makeup and, you know, having a makeup channel and wearing a hijab, but they come after people like me, and even after Muslim women who complain or ex-Muslim women who complain, and they keep defending Islam, not realizing that they would be not only under Muslim countries, under any version of Islam actually being implemented into law in any capacity, they would be harmed. So it frustrates me a lot. And they're the ones who come after me very awfully. They're the ones who keep accusing me of trying to capitalize on women's issues, you know, saying it's not your place to talk about it. What is this guy doing here? And why are you so obsessed with these topics? Why are you so obsessed with Islam and so on?
No, I would not let that affect you, especially considering I feel like, in my opinion, you approach these conversations in an unbiased manner and just very like considerate. I don't think that you're using women's issues to like slam dunk on Islam and like, oh, this is why like we all have to leave this religion. Or I don't really see any malice in the videos that you make, but just comparing it to the ideals that we have today in living in Western societies. Like Islam just contrasts them so heavily. I think anyone can make that distinction or call that out, especially when it comes to women's rights and a lot of other issues, which is another question I kind of wanted to ask. Your channel actually was the first place that I ever saw any sort of hadith that kind of demonized African people and Black people. And I wanted to talk about racism within the hadiths. I've only really come across 2 sources that I've seen kind of just pretty much talk about or Black people or East African people as beneath other races. So just in your research, have you come across anything that's kind of shocking? Or
So I haven't done extensive research on the topic yet. It's one of those things that's on my list, just like anti-Semitism is also on my list. And it's the reason is, well, the reason I haven't gotten to it is because I have a lot of other things that I'm trying to get to as well. But when I pointed out some of these hadiths, I didn't even yet dig into whether it was a systemic Islamic-inspired racism. At the very least, it's very easy to point out that there is remnants of racism, casual racism, you know, microaggressions, as some people will call it, or even worse, in Islam. And the hadith that I quoted, for example, of the Prophet describing a man as a raisin head, saying you should, it's funny how Muslims point to it as if it's a positive sentiment, like you should follow your leader, even if it was an Ethiopian with a raisin head. Um, and
Right.
they take it as like anti-racism. Like he's saying, black people are just like us. He can be a leader. But I think the sentiment behind it was you should follow the leader in Islam no matter what. And even if it were true that he's saying, you should still follow black people as a leader, his description of that description of his, even if it was okay in that time, it just paints him as a man of his time who doesn't realize how not only is this hurtful to people at the time, but it's going to be used going forward, or misused, as they put it, right? To describe people that way, to propagate the culture that they always scapegoat. It's the enlightenment that we have now is no thanks to Islam, not because of Islam.
Right.
So that's my opinion on it right now. I don't have a lot of hadiths to cite about, like I said, it's not that Islam is necessarily inciting that. However, there's so many hadiths. Like there's one, I don't remember the reference right now, but off the top of my head, it's about how there was a trade where the Prophet allowed like trading 2 black men for one non-black slave. And it's not only the fact that, that trade was uneven, it's the fact that they mention the blackness in every hadith. It just shows that the people, at least around the Prophet, were still very racist, and he didn't fix that.
I think the fact that black people are majority mentioned as slaves should bring some red flags for people in the
it's used
first place.
interchangeably, yeah. Like the words Ethiopian or slave or whatever, they're often used very interchangeably. Yeah.
And I think with the hadith you mentioned earlier, like the underlying sentiment is that Abyssinians or East Africans, which is my ethnic background, are beneath, the Arab people of that time, to say even if they were, an Abyssinian or a slave. What does that imply, right? So
Yeah, he doesn't outright say like they are, like he's saying even though they are, different, even though they are kind of, a lower status, you should still follow them in that case. But he doesn't teach us that they're just like us.
Right. Yeah. And I think that just allows way too much leeway, or at least not even leeway. I just feel like it plants the seed of discrimination. And I think anyone, ex-Muslim or Muslim, who is Black could testify the racism they've experienced from the Muslim community or the Arab community from a very young age. And sometimes it's really hard to separate the two, but I think that seeing it in hadith is just really eye-opening, and I hope that we see more African ex-Muslims talking about these issues, because I think we're a minority within a minority, and it's important to highlight this issue. Yeah, for sure. So I thought it was amazing that you pointed that out.
Yeah, I want to comment on what you said about culture always being scapegoated, as it's culture, it's not religion. Not only did those hadiths and the religion kind of play into or skirt that culture, or not face it head on, or not make any definitive statements about it, at least. Like, I'm trying to be as charitable as possible here, because I don't want to make super strong statements before I bring the hadiths in my stream right now. But what does this prove when Arabs are extremely racist? Like, I remember in Saudi Arabia, the word abd is used interchangeably. Like, and obviously it's not great to do that, but colloquially or between teenagers,
100%.
it's
Yeah.
used to mean black, and it means slave, for those who don't know. And then you see some pedantic responses like, but Abdullah is a name, so does that mean that, it's just stupid responses like that. But what I mean here is the culture that Islam is in, and it thrives in, and it props up. Islam wasn't able to shut that down. For 1400 years now, it hasn't fixed it. But what fixed it is secular values, and other, outsiders have fixed that in their communities. And now Islam is trying to catch up. So to say that it's culture and not Islam still doesn't absolve Islam, because it just shows that Islam is a failure at fixing societal problems.
Right.
That's my opinion.
I have one last topic I wanted to touch on quickly before I go. I find a lot discussing issues or debating issues with Muslim apologists, they will reinterpret verses or reinterpret tafsir to kind of align more with their views or their moral compass today. How do you deal with people who or how do you feel about people who kind of act like, you know, the last 1400 years of scholars were all wrong and they seem to have not got it right, and it's these progressive Muslims who finally understand Islam? What is your thoughts on that?
So, two opposing thoughts. The first is kind of a defense of it by saying it's the ad populum fallacy, which is believing that if a lot of people believe or follow this, then therefore it's true. So someone could defend this by saying, well, just because the majority of Muslims followed it the old way doesn't mean that that way is the actual objective truth. I'll concede with that, but then the implication is that most of these Muslims understood it wrong, which means not only is the message a failure if most of Muslims, let alone most humans on earth, didn't really get it right, but then what? Okay, so those Muslims, do they go to hell or do they take a lot of sins for misunderstanding? If yes, then again, that message is a failure. And what did Allah achieve except send a lot of people into hell? If no, then that means that Allah he revealed a confusing message that most people up until today will misunderstand and then only pick up on after progressive values have, Islam caught up with progressive values, and all the harm that has been caused to non-Muslims and Muslims, like especially non-Muslims who are not going to go to heaven. How are they going to get paid back for the injustice caused against them because of this so-called misunderstanding? So it doesn't make sense to use that cop-out. To me at least, if they want to keep those newer progressive values and they want to make up a new Islam, that's fine by me, as long as they standardize it somewhere. Because and they can't do that, because once they try to, they will be persecuted for it, because Islam doesn't accept change. Islam is built up on this concept that it's the final unchanged message. So I think it's it's a difficult, if not impossible task. And I think that I'll let them do their thing as long as they standardize it and they don't use it as the face of Islam somehow. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really
For sure.
appreciate it.
Thanks for joining.
Of
I
course.
appreciate your contribution.
All right. Good luck
All right.
with the rest of your
Take care.
channel. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, Leyla, I'm going to add you in a second, and then that will be the end of the stream. I just want to acknowledge a chat here, and I'm not acknowledging it because it's a super chat. This person, I'm not too fond of them. They're a bit bizarre. It is a Muslim person, and he said, how could Raisinhead be racist while in Islam racism isn't allowed? Malcolm X was a Muslim. So this is a complete distraction. When I'm talking about something and I lay a case for why I think, again, I'm not saying Islam is the foundation of that racism per se, but Islam either kind of turned a blind eye or didn't exactly address it head on or encouraged it. Maybe you think accidentally, by using this kind of term that I think lays the groundwork for future abuse. And then you come in and say, well, there's an example of a Black Muslim. What does that really achieve? You're not facing the problem head on. It's whataboutism. It's like saying Bilal, the Prophet's companion, he used to be a slave and the Prophet freed him. Therefore, no racism, no slavery. What does that do? So how could a raisin head be racist? Ask a Black person, do they like to be called a raisin head? I mean, if that was the case at the time, that it was normal and Black people accepted it because that's how Arabs spoke, does that mean that the message is just for that time, for some ignorant, backwards people who used to call Black people raisin heads? It doesn't really make sense what you're saying. And it seems like Allah is really messing with my camera today. I think the longer the stream goes on, the longer my camera doesn't want to continue. Anyway, thank you for the super chat, I guess. I'll take Leyla on. I'm adding you in 3, 2, 1. Hey, Leyla, how's it going?
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Well, I guess my story starts from like when I was in my mid-teens, and it's so scary speaking. Basically, I was put into like a Islamic rehab center. So like my parents are from Somalia, my land, and they put me in this rehab center like like fix up my deen. And when I was in there, I saw like basically the guards abused us. They put us in chains they like, I saw one girl from that place said that she doesn't want to be Muslim no more. And then the lady who owned that place said, okay, look, if you don't say Shahada, we're going to kill you. And I thought they were joking because I never heard that before. And then later on, she wasn't joking. And then from that day on, I started to do like more research into the deen. And then I started to realize like I had a naive way of the religion compared to, I thought like, I don't know, I thought like God would allow you. Like, and I think I had a naive version of Islam where it was more lenient. And when I started to do more research towards my late teens, I realized I don't want, this religion is crazy, and it's like, I don't know, it was crazy. It was crazy, and it was crazy to think that I was defending something. Like, for example, Aisha marriage. I used to think I didn't see her as a 9-year-old. I saw her as like a 25-year-old. I saw her as a grown woman and not a child. So looking back, I'm like so surprised and shocked that like I went to loopholes just to like defend God, even though it was like the religion and stuff. So when I did more research, I realized the religion is it's just fake, and like Muhammad is the guy who wanted attention. Like it was red, it was like contradicting, and there's like so many sects. Like there's Shia, there's Sunnis, there's Salafis, and it's like very confusing. There's like, where's the one religion? So then I decided to like leave Islam low key and like just believe in God only. But then I started to realize like if there's no point of worshipping a God, because let's say that there is a God and he's allowing all this craziness happening in this world, why must I worship him? Like it doesn't make sense for me to worship him. He doesn't need our worship. And it's like you've made galaxies, you've made so many things allegedly, so why should I worship you? You don't need me. So then I started to realize I don't really feel connected to the religion. Like I don't really, but I didn't want to let go of like, because I've let a lot of things slide from like what people have done to me, because I used to think karma will reach them in the hereafter, and I didn't want to let go of the idea that karma will reach people in the hereafter. So it was kind of hard to let go of that idea. Like some things, like I may not get that. Some people may not get the karma. So when I left last year, but I think I left like 2 years ago. But last year, I officially said I'm not Muslim no more, and it was kind of hard because I don't know, it's like, because I kind of let go of the idea of God, because like I feel like he betrayed me, like a friend betrayed me, and like just like grew me into like Islam and made me like love it, but it was all wrong. I can't explain it well, but I'm kind of angry at God right now, and yeah, that's the main reason I left, and the fear of hell as well. Yeah.
Well, I'm really sorry that you went through this, and I'm at least glad that you weren't on the receiving end of that those threats in the shelter, but I feel sorry for the person who was as well.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was because I used to, because they bought a sheikh, like I think it's a sheikh, they bought a sheikh, and then the guy came, and then there was like, I think there were other people standing, and then the girls were like begging her to say the shahada, and I literally was standing there like kind of laughing, and then one of the girls said, "Oh, whoever leaves the religion, you can get killed," and the Somalians like Sharia law, so they will kill you, and that's the first time like I was confused. I was like, you're lying. God will never do that, because the God I believe was very merciful and very nice. Why would he do that? And then that's when obviously I started, but because in Somaliland it's Sharia law, and the parents get to say, like, for example, the kids, like, there's no such thing as child abuse. It's only kids missing about. So the kids miss about, their parents can beat them up. They can put them into prisons. They can put them into those Islamic rehab centers. They can do whatever they want. But over here, there's laws, but over there, there's no laws protecting kids. So some kids are out there just suffering, forced to learn the Quran and so many stuff.
Yeah. Um, as you were telling me the story, and knowing that you said you used to justify, for example, the Prophet's marriage to Aisha, it's a reminder that the people who do this, more often than not, it's not because they would have done that anyway. It's not like you were a bad person at the time and you wanted to justify that. It's just that you were put in that position and you were in this set of beliefs that you probably didn't have any control over adopting, right? Like you were just born into it more often than not. And I'm sorry that you went through that, and I'm glad that you had that realization eventually. But you said something about being angry at God. Did you feel like God existed, but you are unhappy with how he's handling things?
It's kind of like I think I don't know, like I think I was angry at God because it was like and now I don't believe there is a God, but I still feel like I don't know, I feel like I don't know, ego, whatever it is, but I feel like I'm angry at that idea, like, and
You're
I feel like I
angry
haven't fully,
at
I
the
feel like I
idea
haven't,
of God?
I feel like I haven't fully accepted the fact that God doesn't exist, but I
Mhm.
still low key do, and I'm just angry that he allowed all this and he was lying to me and was basically deceiving me, and that's the bit I'm really angry at.
Mhm. Well, I don't know if you necessarily need to let go of the whole concept of God in general because you don't believe in Islam. If it brings you comfort, if you're able to believe in it, again, not everybody is able to. It's not really a choice, in my opinion, what you believe in. But if somehow you're able to believe that God exists and there is going to be eternal justice or whatever it may be, then more power to you. As long as you're taking care of yourself and taking care of things in this life. And the fear of hell can also be another motivator to keep you attached to that system. And I hope that do you still fear hell, or does it cross your mind
Oh
at all?
no,
No?
because for me, I feel like hell, if it's gone on for thousands of years, your body will get used to it. I feel like it will be the norm, and it won't be like compared to what like bad, like something to be good, it has to be like relative to like bad stuff. So I feel like we should be the norm and be a bit boring. And heaven even, it's just boring, and I feel like that's just a state of like it's just something Muhammad made up because that's something like everything that's being said in heaven and hell is what our human brain can comprehend. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a bit basic. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. You think it's kind of a non-answer when they say it's going to be the case, but your mind can't comprehend it.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I feel like even if it's bad, it's like okay, but if it's gonna go on for years and years, eventually my body will get used to it. I don't think it'll be bad forever. And yeah,
I mean, I think once we start to give in to these presumptions that, suppose that this God who's capable of anything exists, I suppose he's capable of making us feel increasing pain forever and ever, and we wouldn't get used to it. But at that point, we're just making a lot of presumptions on top of presumptions. When we think about it from our frame of reference, none of this actually makes sense because it's all built on, just things that haven't been proven. So I hope that it sounds like you don't fear hell anymore, and I'm glad that you don't. And I hope that your feelings about whether God exists or not, I hope that you find a conclusion to that puts your mind at ease. Do you think that, I mean, it's only been a year, right, since you're,
officially no
yeah,
less than a year, but yeah,
less than a year,
last
okay.
year.
I mean, how do you feel about it right now?
I feel good. I feel like I feel less anxious, or I'm not getting punished for not praying. I feel less anxious, less tense, less worried.
I'm glad you're feeling that way, and I can assure you it gets better. And if you need to take a break from all of this, if you need to, put it aside and focus on your life and how to improve your situation in your real life, or just how to be happy, it may also be good for you. As long as at the end of the day you have some kind of support system, or you remind yourself that these scare tactics don't work anymore. And yeah, I'm thankful that you chose to share this with us today.
No, thank you. Thank you for giving me the
Mhm.
platform. Thank you. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. Is there anything else that you had on your mind?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Leyla, for calling. I appreciate
Okay.
it.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. All right. People are asking how they can join. Unfortunately, I have to get going. This would be the end of the live stream. It went on for 3 hours. Wow. I appreciate everyone joining today. And a lot of these stories were heartfelt. Some of them were, funny in a sense. And it just goes to show that not everyone's experience is the same, and that these experiences are real. Like, people still wanted to join. There's a lot of us out there. We just don't usually have a platform. So I'm glad that those people reached out to me. Oh, and one more super chat to acknowledge. Hey, Azri, he was on earlier. Thank you very much for joining and for the super chat. Yeah, and thanks Hassan Odwan for the compliment. He says, wonderful live stream. It's so heartening to see how ex-Muslims' voices have increased so dramatically over the last few years. Much love. I'm glad to hear that they have increased, because your frame of reference is obviously a lot wider than mine, I suppose. And I'm sure I'm going to feel even better in a few years when I see the numbers multiplying, when when I no longer make videos and I can just sit back and be glad that other people are doing it as well. And people always keep asking Hassan Madwan every time he shows up. They keep reminding him that they love his videos and they keep rewatching them and they hope for new ones. But yeah, I understand that it's a chore and it's a task, and not all the time do people have the time or energy or space to do this. So yeah, we appreciate the work that you've put in so far, and I believe he still posts articles and writes articles. So you should follow him on all of his platforms. Yeah, and just a bit of an overshare, but I've needed to get up and use the washroom for about an hour and a half now. So I've been suffering, but going off of what I said earlier, making a sense or purpose out of this suffering has made it more bearable. So what was it? Was it Nietzsche who said, one who has a why to live can bear any how? And this stream was my why to resist. And that's how I bared. I don't know the how. Anyhow, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. I appreciate you joining today. And yeah, as always, think critically and think for yourself.